The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Ambers. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
A very good afternoon to you as we welcome you on into Rochester's only local sports talk show. You have found the sports bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us and listening along at 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey app where we sound our best, and our YouTube stream every afternoon from 3 until 6 on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester and on Twitch at The Fan Rochester. I'm Danger. That's Battaglia.
I can guarantee you, coming up next Thursday, the weather on the patio, the weather at Three Heads for our draft show will be much better than today. How are you, buddy?
Waking up with snow on the ground. I don't know what you're talking about. What's wrong with
little Christmas spirit here?
What's wrong with that in the middle of April? That's exactly what we signed up for.
I blame the home improvement store that's doing this. Hey, it's Spring Black Friday sales. Like, really? We're just going to, make up a...
Oh, we know the season's here. Nobody should be surprised. We had fake spring. That was 2 days of fake spring. And now it's second winter. And it's been second winter for, the last couple of weeks. And eventually, real spring will get here, and it'll last maybe 10 days.
10 days. Spring is very short here.
Very fleeting.
Yeah, so when do we get real spring? Memorial Day?
Maybe it's a week from tomorrow when we're at Three Heads. Maybe it starts then. I would like that. I mean, Three Heads is the spot for us for day one of the NFL draft. And while we're at Three Heads, it's always a great time for a kind IPA. We'll have several for you, waiting for you when you join us a week from Thursday at Three Heads for day one of the NFL draft. Atlantic Avenue in the neighborhood of the arts. We will talk plenty of NFL draft between now and a week from Thursday, and we've got a great show lined up for you today. Part of what makes this year's draft compelling is the intrigue around the top three picks. I think we all kind of know Cam Ward to Tennessee feels like a lock.
Yeah, the draft starts at Cleveland.
Right.
Right, what are the Browns going to do? Could they actually trade out of there? Do they do the thing that we all expect them to do? And, hey, you have a generational talent in Travis Hunter. Most teams would take Travis Hunter in that spot. Or does the owner, who we know will overrule his GM, see Deshaun Watson, how all of a sudden, poof, here's a new contract or new quarterback. Does the owner step in and nope, we're going to go draft Shedeur Sanders? Browns are fascinating, and I love it because I have no idea what they're going to do.
Oh, we got our guy from Cleveland, Spencer German, who's got some 585 roots. Our Odyssey Sports sister station, 92.3, the Fan in Cleveland. Spencer joins us at 4:25. We'll talk a little bit about the intriguing Browns there sitting at number 2.
Yeah, so what will the Browns do? And you always see the stuff from Florio and others, there's some sort of legal wrangling that could the Browns actually get out quicker than we think from the Deshaun Watson contract. I don't want to offer any false hope, but let's ask the guy actually in Cleveland, is there any truth to this? And so what degree could this actually have?
Let's get some winners later this hour from PJ Glasser. He is the host of Send It In on the BetMGM network. Does a great job on that half-hour show, rapid fire, and just giving out winners all show long. He'll be joining us in about 20 minutes or so with his picks for tonight's play-in action. We'll get maybe some Major League Baseball picks from him and more from PJ Glasser, the host of Send It In Insider Calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app.
I'm completely distracted because on our monitor, the Twins and Mets, this looks like a serious situation where an umpire was hit by a line drive. So we'll keep tabs on this, but gosh, Twins are up 3-0 on that. We'll ask PJ for some of his wins here tonight. And I'm also curious about the NBA here, Danger. It's not too often you get a 2 seed underdog against a 7. The Warriors are actually minus 200 against the Rockets. Mm-hmm. Does the regular season not matter? Do we just think, oh, we're the Warriors, we're just going to show up here? Or is this a case where, and we learned this early on, emotion has no place in betting? What's the smart play when it comes to Rockets-Warriors?
We'll get into that with PJ Glasser when he joins us at 3:25 this afternoon. You can pull up a stool and join us any point this afternoon on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub. Wingman line, 866-4FAN is that number. 866-4326. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke BBQ and Pub. That's 135 West Commercial Street in ER. GoodSmokeBBQ.com.
Yeah, just if we have anything on this situation in Minnesota, I'll let you know. But you know it's serious. Now finally the replay is going to come, and it is an umpire who
it looks like he just took a foul ball right off the
size
noggin.
of the head. Yeah.
So maybe a concussion, but he's not. There he goes. He's walking off with a little bit of help.
All right. So at least he.
That's man. Every time I see a player get hit by a pitch or somebody takes a line drive off of a body part, I'm always. I remember being a kid going to the batting cages. The first time ever at a batting cage, my uncle took me. And I wasn't a big baseball player. I mean, I played t-ball a couple of years as a kid. And I think maybe a year of baseball before I messed up my ankle, which is a different story. But I'm at the batting cage, and my uncle, smart ass that he is, he rifled the thing up all the way. Like he was, and I had no shot. And I also had no idea really how this thing worked. I mean, I was young, and I took one off of the arm, not realizing that there was a ball coming my way. It probably was coming from my head, but it got my right arm. And I just remember how much that hurt. And it wasn't, at the speed that you're seeing some of these guys get hit with off of the bat or off of a pitcher's arm. But my arm the next day was solid bruise, just black and blue the entire. I'm like, that's. I don't ever want to have to deal with that again. Like baseball players in their own way, for a game where they're spending the majority of their time defensively, standing around, you get hit by a pitch. That's a pain I don't think you ever forget.
Yeah, it's and you don't really realize to that degree the speed that it's coming in. Danger, like every summer, my son and I we'll go since you started with t-ball and now we're just kind of growing up together, growing old. Like we'll go to the cages and plunk down the $20, get the coins, put them in, and kind of meant that for him. Like there's so many dads like myself. Okay, I'm going to take a few rips.
Take a few cuts.
Well, the fastest pitch at this particular cage was 70. I can't catch up to it. No. I can't imagine what that's like 100 miles an hour coming in.
We've had this debate before. Is hitting a baseball is the hardest thing to do in professional sports, right?
Outside of the sport of hockey, I would think, where you're on the ice and the skill that takes, but being set up for a curveball or just the eye, the vision that it would take.
If you gave me 100 chances to hit a Major League Baseball fastball, I don't think I'm hitting it once. I don't think I'm making contact once. I think it's got to be the most challenging thing to do in all of professional sports. Yeah, hockey is hockey, and you have to have the skill to be able to skate first and foremost, and do what they do is remarkable, and they're incredible athletes. And we'll talk some Stanley Cup playoffs later this afternoon as well. But I just think hitting a baseball is impossible.
Well, who knows the degree? Like this umpire walked off, okay, and was actually needed a little help, had something to his head, and you hope it's just a concussion to that degree, but. It's a morbid question, but you're going to have video this year of some pitcher taking a liner. What's it going to take to get more protection here for these guys? I'm just fearful that we're going to have a really bad situation at some point in baseball. I digress. 2-0. Jays are leading the Braves. We've got the Mets trailing in Minnesota 3-0. The Yankees playing tonight. Oh, by the way, the Red Wing game, it's off today.
No, really? You're kidding me. I mean, if you're a Red Wing player or a visiting player and you're in town and you look out the window, you wake up this morning ready to go to the park and you look out the window and you see some snow on the ground, what did I sign up for? What am I doing?
You can play in snow. What's the problem?
Yeah, it's exactly the perfect condition for a ball game. Hell, let's play two, as they say. There you go. The table is set for you here in the sports bar this afternoon, Gino.
All right, I'm ready because you asked me. And it dawned on me. You said, where do you plant your flag as to what the Buffalo Bills should do in this draft? I have come up with my conclusion about what not only I would like to see happen, I believe will happen, Mike Danger. So before we get to that.
Yes.
remind everyone, like, what your position
Now,
is.
my position is less about what I think will happen or what I think they should do. I mean, I think they should go get their guy. And I've kind of planted my flag in my 2025 draft crush. This is the guy that I want to see the Bills end up with, whatever it takes. And that's Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle, University of Michigan. That's more my draft crush versus what I think they could do or will do. That's the guy. Like last year for me, it was Ladd McConkey. Like I wanted them to have Ladd McConkey. They had an opportunity to get him. They didn't get him. They took Keon Coleman instead. I know last year you were a Cooper DeJean guy. He was there. They didn't take Cooper DeJean. We see McConkey. We see DeJean do what they did with their teams last year. And all I can think of is, well, could have been ours. For whatever reason, they didn't go for those guys. Kenneth Grant is my draft crush this year. Go get him. If he's not there at 30, do what you have to do to get Kenneth Grant on your roster.
Listen, if Kenneth Grant is there at 30, I'm totally fine with that. That's the choice. If Kenneth Grant is there at 27, you move up a few ticks, maybe you give up a fourth and a fifth, go do that. But what are the odds of that happening? I'm presenting to you a different scenario, Danger. And one where I'm thinking not only is realistic, I've sold myself on this. Because you want me to answer the question, what is my draft crush? Well, maybe my draft crush is loading up. How's that for an answer? Because you can't tell me by any degree, yes, you got McConkey right last year. I got Cooper DeJean right. More often than not, though, it's a 50-50 proposition. So let's take more turns at the roulette table, shall we? Because at 30, the Bills are in a prime spot to trade down. And by that, I'm looking at the second round, and I'm looking at these quarterback-needy teams. The Browns, let's say, for instance. If the Browns, Danger, decide, all right, and they should, Travis Hunter's our guy. You don't think their next pick is going to be a quarterback? You think they're going to be patient enough to wait until Friday? I'm thinking they're on the horn. I'm thinking that maybe Brandon Beane would be one of those teams. Well, to that degree, what about the Giants? What about the Raiders? The Jets? I'd entertain it. You traded with Kansas City, you could trade with the Jets. Any team that has a draft pick at the top of round 2, move down, pick up an extra third-round pick, and then you know what? With that third-round pick and then package in a fourth, fifth, get back into the second round. 3 second-rounders. That's what I want because I'm not here to tell you that one corner is better than the other. I'm not here to tell you that Kenneth Grant is the answer over another. What I'm telling you is that the science of this, Danger, is just take more shots. And if the Buffalo Bills hit, in my scenario, on 2 of the 3 second-round picks, you've won. There's another factor here, too. You're going to need cheap labor. All these contracts, it was great. Everybody kind of tied up. What if you get an injury? What if you get something else? I'm looking down the road 2-3 years from now that you're just going to need more help at all these positions. So you want Kenneth Grant? I want, just by position, give me a starting corner. Give me a tackle that you can consider a starter, maybe not this year, but with the guys that are going to be out by suspension. And give me a wide receiver in round 2. For the sake of this exercise, Danger, I'm going to present to you an option. And that's this. Give me a year. Any year longer than 3 years. Because I think it takes more than 3 years, okay, to evaluate an NFL player. And if we look at second-round picks, you're going to be like, oh, my gosh, there is talent that you can get in the second round. You're caught up here.
I'm listening.
Okay.
I'm listening.
So give me a year.
Yeah, go with 2021.
2021 NFL draft. All right. You think I remember this off the top of my head. I don't. 2021. So everybody remembers this was the year Trevor Lawrence went number 1 overall. Zach Wilson, Trey Lance. Ugh. Kyle Pitts. There's some crap at the top of the draft, was it not? Jamar Chase. Okay, by the Bengals as a 5. Jalen Waddle. And then, let's say middle first round. Oh, my gosh. Pick 16 through 23. There's not a guy that's made the Pro Bowl yet. Huh. It's interesting. Kadarius Toney, that was a great pick by the Giants, right? Travis Etienne, that was your
Loved
darling.
Etienne.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's first round pick. That's Greg Rousseau was the Bills' pick at 30. And you look back at that, that's not a bad pick.
It's okay.
Yeah.
He's been okay. I mean, he got his extension. He's a part of the team. He's not going anywhere. But I wouldn't classify Greg Rousseau yet. I mean, maybe this happens next year. I don't just view him as a game wrecker. I view him as a good player, and that's it. I want somebody that's going to alter the dimensions of the defense or the offense.
At the end of the second round, the Chiefs found their center, Creed Humphrey.
He's good.
Yeah, he's good. You've got some other guys here. Landon Dickerson, for the Eagles. He's good, too, on that offensive line. Maybe this was the year that would support your argument. Asante Samuel Jr. for the Chargers also went, and he's out the door, too. Tutu Atwell, the Rams.
Yeah,
all
sure.
right. Some guys that are not good. I'm looking to see. Right at the end of the – want to take a guess? Who was the quarterback taken right at the end of the second round?
In 2021? Oh God, who was it? It wasn't the Titans. It wasn't what's his name?
No.
Malik Willis. That was a couple years later.
I'll give you one hint, and then you'll get it right away. Not the brightest guy.
Oh, deliberate learner?
Deliberate learner.
Yeah, Kyle Trask.
Do you remember who the Bills took in the second round that year?
That was, let's see, they took Rousseau, and then...
Mm-hmm. They did the unexpected. They went right back to the same position. Boogie Basham.
Oh, right. Yeah, that was bad.
Pat Freiermuth was a second-rounder that year.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, Gino, I'm with what you're saying. I think you don't really love... I think what I'm hearing you say is there isn't a prospect this year that, to your eyes, feels like a standout, given where the Bills are selecting. And if you can't find that standout at 30, or you don't believe that the guy, and like you said, we don't know. I mean, for the Chiefs to get Creed Humphrey in the second round, now you'd be like, that's a steal. Chris Jones was a second rounder, right? Like,
right.
Unbelievable player. If you can find those guys and they're there in the second round, and you believe that they're a first round value, and you're getting them in the second round, fantastic. I'm all for it. But I don't know. I guess I don't know, outside of the top guys at any position group, who the Bills would put in that first round category, that they would find that value in the second round by taking a first round talent in the second round. So that's why I'm just kind of like zeroed in on defensive tackle, and a guy that helps with something that I've seen as a deficiency in their defense for the last couple of years. They can't stop the run. There are games where they just cannot stop the run. It's a liability. And that's the kind of player that can change that for you. Maybe he can't get up after the quarterback. Maybe that's something you have to work on. But Kenneth Grant, with his size at 6'4", 331, I have a feeling he will be able to stop the run. He's a big, big human being. But that would be chaotic. If the Bills ended up with 3 second-round picks, I think we would all sign up for that. That would be fun.
Mike Singletary was a second-rounder. Here's some individual ranked the top second-rounders of all time. See if you agree with this. Anquan Bolden.
Good player.
Derrick Henry.
Great player.
Calais Campbell.
Yep.
Shady McCoy.
Sure.
Michael Strahan.
These are all like Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers. They're all great.
Yeah, Devontae Adams, Gronk.
Yeah.
Favre, Singletary. The best they rank out of that, Drew Brees.
God. Remember when Brees came out of Purdue and started with the Chargers, and it just didn't
Couldn't
work.
beat up Doug Flutie.
Couldn't work. And has a renaissance in New Orleans. It becomes one of the best ever in New Orleans. And they have it. I feel like they're still paying for those sins of paying Drew Brees all that money all those years.
Well, it's not just that. Nick Saban chose Dante Culpepper over Drew Brees. When did, for all these years, when do you ever have a quarterback that hits free agency that, hey, this guy will actually be a future Hall of Famer? It never happens. There
was a bit of Bills news today to share, and I'll get your take on this too, Gino. James Bradbury, veteran corner, visiting with the Bills today after playing 2 years for the Giants before moving on to Philadelphia. Opened his career in Carolina as a 2016 second-round pick when McDermott and Bean were both still in the Panthers organization. He was released by the Eagles after he missed all of last season. He tore his Achilles last summer. So I ask you, is this the Bills doing him a solid, doing him a favor because there's probably a relationship there? At 31 years old, it doesn't stop them from drafting a corner, obviously.
He started in the Super Bowl 3 years ago. You remember with Philadelphia. He was the player that, was defensive holding. You have to call that by letter of the law. And I always thought afterward Bradbury was a stand-up guy, and I think most Philly fans they didn't give him too much of a tough time, but maybe after that.
Had some good seasons in Philly.
Right. Chris Trapasso, who, by the way, will be joining us Monday. He is on One Bills Live tomorrow. He had it best, and come saying about Bradbury. For the Bills, he would be a floor setter.
Okay.
Like, that's kind of, like honestly, is it the worst thing in the world to have James Bradbury come into camp? Like, you got to look at it from this way, Danger. Like, they're not signing him, and oh my gosh, he made the team. He's got to go make the team. The answer to the question, who's going to be starting at corner, tell me if this is true or false. True or false? The player that is starting opposite Christian Benford on the Buffalo Bills right now is in the 2025 NFL Draft.
True.
I believe it to be true, too.
I think it's true. Whether it's the guy that take at 30 or a guy that they move up to in the first round or a guy that they find in the second round, with your plan, with 3 second-round picks, one of them is going to be a corner. And, yeah, I would say compete for that position. And you got him opposite Benford. You don't have to worry about Dane Jackson. And if you were to sign Bradbury, you wouldn't have to worry about trotting him out there either. I mean, if you're going to have him Bradbury, why not just re-sign Douglas, who's not coming off an Achilles injury?
That's why this seems like a favor, right? Or we don't know what Douglas is asking for at this point.
He's not getting anything that he's asking for. He's still out there.
Tre'Davious White, for that matter, is still out there. Like I know people will be like, "Oh, come on," like Tre'Davious White, and I don't know. Like, wouldn't that pull for McDermott to do Trey White a solid be there too?
Yeah, it would feel like a favor to me. But again, no guarantee that a player like Bradbury or even Douglas, if they draft a corner, would make the team. We'll get to PJ Glasser, the host of Send It In on the BetMGM Network. He's stopping by the Sports Bar next. We'll get his take on the play-in games tonight. We'll talk some NBA postseason. We'll dive into we'll just get you some winners tonight's action in Major League Baseball as well. PJ Glasser, the Glass Man, next on The Fan Rochester.
update.
Just 3 games left in the Amerks season, including tonight. Rochester hosting Cleveland. Mike Leone on the opponent.
They're a really desperate team, man. They're 1 point out of the 3rd seed, and I think that's really important to get the bye. So they're going to come and they're going to push, and they got a couple of really good players that could hurt you. So we just have to make sure that we're ready to go and ready to play because they got guys that could really expose you.
Leone on the sports bar yesterday. Don Stevens, Andrew Mossbrooks will have your call. 7 o'clock tonight here on The Fan. With snow on the ground this morning, the Rochester Red Wings game called off. They'll make it a part of a doubleheader coming up on Thursday. On the Major League scoreboard, the Twins leading the Mets 3-0. They're in the 8th. Jays are leading the Braves 3-0. They're in the 7th. Brewers up on the Tigers 5-1. You got the Yankees tonight hosting Kansas City. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Pull up a stool and join us. 585-866-4FAN. 866-4326. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Wednesdays are for winners. On the line, the host of Send It In, Odyssey Sports Betting Insider PJ Glasser. Insider calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. PJ, before we talk about the NBA play-in games and the postseason in general, we know how big you are into golf, and we still, there's still people buzzing about what we went through on Sunday, that final round of the Masters. What was your takeaway from besides Gene being horribly wrong on his pick in Cam Smith?
Thanks,
Danger. Yeah, it was epic, guys. That's what you hope for in the Masters, right? That kind of Sunday with that kind of drama, and then just Rory going for history in the Grand Slam. It was awesome. So it's as you guys know, like March Madness is my favorite sporting event. Masters is number 2, and it's probably as good as a Masters Sunday as I've seen in my lifetime. So it was awesome. And look, as big as that win was for Rory and getting that monkey off his back, guys, that might have just been the start for him. He kind of reminds me of Xander almost, where Xander had kind of that notion about him that he couldn't win big tournaments, right? He couldn't win the majors. He was a great talent. And then Xander wins the major, the PGA, and then he turns around and he wins the Open the next year. Well, Rory hadn't won a major for a decade, and he finally wins one, and he gets that monkey off his back, and now he might be in for a big season. The PGA, you guys, where they're playing at Quail Hollow, Rory's won there 4 times already.
Wow.
The U.S. Open is at Oakmont. That is maybe the toughest course in the entire world. The winning score there is probably going to be over par. That course is impossible. So you would expect, with the course being so tough, the best players are probably going to separate themselves. And then the Open Championship is at Portrush, which is in his home country in Northern Ireland. He grew up playing that course a bunch of times. So unbelievable Masters, great win for Rory. But you look at the rest of the PGA year and how the major's set up, guys, it might just be the beginning for Rory. He might win a couple more.
Well, PJ, we don't have to wait until May if you want a little action. You've got a pretty decent field, but in my opinion, the RBC Heritage, taking place at Hilton Head, and you've got Scotty Scheffler in the mix here. Any value you see here in any of these names that are playing in this tournament?
Guys, I really like the card this week, which means I'm probably going to lose a ton of money because how much I love it so much. But, this course is an easy handicap for the most part. Nowadays on the PGA Tour, all these golfers are so strong. They hit the ball 300-plus yards off the tee, right? Especially some of these courses, the way that they set it up, some of these guys just hit it so far that they've kind of outplayed some of these courses throughout the years. But Hilton Head is one of these great designs, Harbortown Links, where you really can't outpower this golf course. It's more of a strategic course. You got to hit it in the fairway in the right spots. These are the second smallest greens on tour behind Pebble Beach. So accuracy is the name of the game this week. You got to be accurate off the tee. You got to be accurate with your approach shots. And who is the golfer on tour right now that leads in driving accuracy and leads in approach to green? That would be Colin Morikawa. So I think you got to bet him this week at 10-1 to win. I think you got to bet him at -115 on BetMGM to finish in the top 10. I like him a lot this week. Patrick Cantlay, guys, 6 of the last 8 years that they have played this course, Cantlay has finished in the top 7. So normally when he shows up here, he's always in contention. Now, he's never won any of those top 7 finishes, but again, usually always towards the top. So I like him as a top 10 finish this week. Russell Henley, guys, I don't know if there is a player right now on the PGA Tour in terms of driving accuracy, iron accuracy, and putting as good as Russell Henley. He's in the top 25 in all 3 of those categories. So I like Russ this week at 25-1. And then a crazy long shot, I think it's just a silly price, is Nick Taylor at 125-1. Taylor's top 15 in driving accuracy and approach to the green as well. So those are really the 2 metrics I'm looking for this week. You got to put the ball in the fairway because, again, it's narrow fairways, it's small greens. So if you're one of these golfers that hooks tee shots and you hit it into bunkers and all this sort of thing, it's going to be a tough week for you. So Morikawa, Henley, Nick Taylor, Cantlay, those are the guys I'm looking at this week.
He's PJ Glasser, the host of Send It In on the BetMGM Network. Joining us in the sports bar, Danger and Battaglia. Let's talk a little NBA because we now know that there's going to be a Golden State-Houston round 1 matchup after the play-in games last night, PJ. Talk a little bit about what that series is going to look like. And I think it's a interesting note there that, if I'm not mistaken, Golden State favored in that series. And tonight's play-in tournament games as well.
Yeah, I mean, we'll start with that Warriors-Rockets series. To me, you guys, it reminds me of when the Warriors played the Kings a couple years ago. You know, the Kings were like one of the surprises of the NBA, had all this young and up-and-coming talent, and they're going against the Warriors, who obviously have all this championship pedigree, all this playoff experience, and that's kind of what this series is. You know, the Rockets are a great young team, mixed in with some good veterans, you know, Van Fleet and Dylan Brooks, and then they have Amir Thompson, they got Şengün, they got a good young team, a great coach in Ime Udoka, so I think this will be a fun series. I think it'll go 6 or maybe even 7 games, but, I mean, Steph Curry's playing at such a high level. Jimmy Butler was awesome last night. We know playoff Jimmy throughout the years, how good he is to elevate his game. You still got Steve Kerr on the sideline. So I think this series absolutely could go the distance, but I think the Warriors are favored for a reason. So I like them to advance and beat the Rockets. And then for tonight's playing games, you guys, I'm more so looking at the props. I don't really like anything side or total in Heat Bulls or Mavericks Kings. I do like a couple props, though. Josh Giddey, in 2 of the 3 games this year versus Miami, did have a triple-double. His rebound number tonight is at 9.5. With this obviously being a playoff game, tends to slow down. Unders tend to be a good bet, more missed shots. I'll go over 9.5 rebounds for Josh Giddey. And then in Mavericks Kings, I got props with Sabonis and Anthony Davis targeting those matchups against each other. When Anthony Davis has gone up against Sabonis, usually done pretty well in a couple categories. So Sabonis in 5 of the last 6 matchups against AD has gone under 19 points. His point prop tonight is 19.5, so I like that under. And then facing Sabonis, Anthony Davis has grabbed 15 or more rebounds in his last 3 matchups, and his prop tonight is only 11.5. I think that's way too low. I look at some alternate rebounding props for Anthony Davis if you want to get a little bit crazy. I mean, obviously, without Kyrie being out for the year, Luka's obviously been gone. Anthony Davis is the guy. I mean, he's the dude for Dallas, so he's got to be great on both ends of the floor tonight. I think he will be. He usually plays well against Sabonis in these matchups, so those are some of the props I'm targeting in the play-in games tonight.
PJ Glass, your host, of Send It In on the BetQL Network. PJ, we could go down one by one here, but I'm going to ask the question a little differently here because we want to jump in. Is there any value when it comes to the futures? Who's going to be the NBA champion? Knowing that, well, this isn't the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs where you've had an 8 seed and the Kings win. You had 1 6 seed in the Rockets going back to 1995 winning the championship. And, yeah, you'll get an 8 seed like Miami did a few years ago. Every once in a while reach the final. The Knicks did one time in 1999. But more often than not, it's the teams that have the best talent that get to the final here. So with all that being said, is there a play when it comes to betting who's going to win this thing right now?
To win it, I still think it's Boston, Gene. I think the Celtics are going to go back-to-back. That would be my pick. I think if I were to make a bet, because that's only plus 200, I don't really love that value all that much. I want to try and beat OKC in the Western Conference. I'm not sold that they should be this big of a favorite at minus 140. Now, in the history of the NBA, you guys, the Thunder have the best net rating of any team ever. That's how good they've been in the regular season. They're probably going to have the league MVP in SGA. Their defense is unbelievably good. But here's the problem. This team doesn't have any playoff experience. Last year was really their first taste at it. I mean, this team is a minus 140 favorite to win the West. They're plus 180 to win the NBA Finals at BetMGM. We're pricing this team like they've won a couple championships together, like they are the clear favorites in the NBA. And I can't get there at those prices. Obviously, it wouldn't shock me if OKC wins the West. It wouldn't shock me at all if they win the NBA Finals. There are a lot of smart people I know that think they are the best team and think they are going to win it. But, I mean, you guys, they got to go through legends. I mean, they got to go through they got to go through LeBron and Luka. They got to go through Steph. They got to go through Jokic. They got to go through a healthy Kawhi Leonard right now. They got to go through Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves, who were in the Western Conference Final last year. So I just think that the Thunder, last year they lost in the Western Conference semis. We had questions about their shooting. I still kind of have questions about their outside shooting. They're so deep. When you get to the postseason, I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing because you have to tighten your rotations. Guys who necessarily don't play 35, 40 minutes every night now have to do that when you get to the playoffs. So I have my concern about the Thunder. I like the Warriors at plus 700. We were just talking about them. I mean, they've won 4 titles with this core, right? With Steph and Draymond. Obviously, Klay's not there anymore. But with Steve Kerr, Steph, Draymond, they know how to win this time of year. Jimmy Butler was a great addition for them at the deadline. So I like the Warriors, you guys, plus 700 to win the West. I think Boston wins the title, but for getting the bang for your buck for value, I like Golden State in the West.
I love it. PJ, Major League Baseball, any action that you like on tonight's card?
Yeah, a lot of day games today, so nothing really that I'm sweating out here during the day. But looking at some of the games tonight, I like the Rays team total over at 4.5. These first couple games that the Red Sox and Rays have played have been super high scoring. Going up against Sean Newcomb tonight, the left-hander for the Red Sox, the Rays are the third best in baseball hitting against left-handed pitching. So I like the Rays team total over tonight at 4.5. And then I like the Athletics and the White Sox under at 7.5. You look at Oswaldo Biel, our guy tonight, going for the A's against Jonathan Cannon. So I think both offenses are going to struggle a little bit tonight in Chicago. I like the 7.5 in that game.
Yeah, I think we can nominate Beto as long as he's on the roster next year.
Yeah, I mean,
I think so.
I'm looking over some of the teams, the names that missed the Baltimore E's bracket, and for the life of me, I have no idea how a strong program like Marquez Tuiasosopo didn't make this year's field.
That's spectacular.
Or Kiko Alonso. How does he miss this year's? There's plenty to digest here.
Yeah, we had the word "on," which
that's
like the color blue or
it's a little
whatever.
Cinderella story there if you're talking about the Baltimore E's accent bracket.
PJ, one last question. It's like I feel like we're kind of bystanders here, like a lot of states are. How fun is it to bet the NFL draft? It's not like I can pick up the phone and ask Brandon Beane personally, hey, who are you going to take at 30 here? So, tell us. I wish we had this in New York State.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are certain markets I like to attack, right? I think with this draft, too, especially, the consensus is that we know Cam Ward's going 1 to Tennessee. We pretty much know that Travis Hunter is going 2 to Cleveland. It doesn't seem like it's as much of a lock as Cam Ward is, but it certainly feels like things are trending that way. After that, I mean, with all this steam now, with, Shador working out with the Giants and Dable and Joe Shane, the GM, trying to save their jobs, do they feel the need to get a QB at 3 with Shador? So this draft is pretty much going to start with the 3rd pick, and then chaos could ensue after that. The markets I more so like betting into, you guys, are who are all these teams going to draft with their 1st pick? I love those markets, right? So obviously to play to your audience, Buffalo Bills at BetMGM right now, the position of the 1st drafted player, D-line edge minus 115, cornerback plus 280, safety at plus 600, right? So no shock, all the defensive positions are the top 3 favorites for Buffalo. And, with releasing Von Miller, need a pass rusher there on the other side of Bosa, it makes sense. They certainly could go in the secondary. So those are some of the markets I like playing. Maybe not as much with Buffalo just because they're later in the draft. And even though they're likely to go defense, certainly how the draft kind of falls probably is going to determine which way they go position-wise. But, I'm looking at some of these markets, you guys. The Carolina Panthers to draft a tight end at number 8 is 20-1. I kind of love the idea of Tyler Warren, the Penn State tight end, going there, right? Bryce Young continuing his development, getting him the best tight end in the draft. Atlanta right now is 7-1 to draft a corner. They're one of the worst secondaries in football. And you look like where they're drafting at 15, Will Johnson out of Michigan, Jahdae Barron out of Texas should be right in that wheelhouse. So certain teams I'm targeting where I think that's the value. If you can really kind of narrow in on these teams and what position you think they're going to draft, that's usually the way I like that in the draft a lot.
If you had to say over under 2.5 running backs selected in round 1, where would you go, PJ?
That's a good question. I mean, you feel really good about 2, right? Like Genty and Hampton, you feel that's pretty good. I think I would go under though. I think those are going to be the only 2. Genty's a fascinating one too, you guys. Right now I'm seeing a lot of him going 6 to the Raiders, but do the Giants, do they have FOMO, missing out on Barkley? Do they take him at 3? Do the Patriots give Drake May a weapon right now? It's interesting. So it's under to answer your question. But I think Genty's going to be interesting where he ends up going.
Wow, PJ Glasser. If you want more of his content, and we always invite you, PJ, check out your show. Tell everybody about it.
Yeah, guys, send it in. Weekdays, 1 to 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's 30 minutes, no commercials, and it's interactive. So we hope people listen, they watch, they chime in, all their best bets, all their questions, and we run through a little bit everything. We talk golf. We talk NFL draft, NBA. We got the NHL postseason starting next week, too, which I can't wait for. So it's a lot of fun, and you can watch the show on Twitch, YouTube. We stream live on Twitter as well at the BetMGM Network. You can check us out.
PJ, appreciate the time as always, buddy. Have a great week.
You too, fellas. Talk to you next week.
There's PJ Glasser, the host of Send It In, and Odyssey Sports Betting Insider. Insider calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app.
I think Boston as a potential back-to-back, you know why that makes sense? Look at their path. Okay, we're going to assume the Knicks, okay, and then can they get by Cleveland? I would think that, they're the team right now, and Cleveland Flames may object there.
Speaking of paths, I'm prepared to make my Stanley Cup champion prediction.
Now, I think this should go with the disclaimer. I'm going to offer you a lifeline. Because, we stopped internally here in the office doing our Stanley Cup pool.
Yeah, our old coworker, Scotty Karate, he organized the whole thing. And
one year I won it, and I had no idea I won it.
Yeah.
We were just so off the mark. It's the one sport, and I mentioned this to PJ, you can this is why we love it.
It's impossible.
An 8th seed can win the cup.
Yep.
It is impossible, and things get destroyed. Where, at least for March Madness, you're kind of in it, out of it. Like this, you could be out of it altogether. So in a sport danger where you got to go back to the Chicago Blackhawks, the last time you actually had a President's Trophy winner win the Stanley Cup, you are going to plant your flag.
Mm-hmm. I am. I'll warn you in advance. I don't know that it's going to be a very popular pick, but I have belief, and I'll explain why next.
That's very good. That is a take for sure. Should the Buffalo Bills go after T.J. Watt? And what would this actually look like? What do you think the market is for T.J. Watt? Somebody from Pittsburgh had a take, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Might force us to reevaluate this.
Yeah, okay. We'll get into that as well. And we'll also be joined by Spencer German, our Odyssey Sports sister station, 92.3 The Fan, in Cleveland, where the draft actually begins with pick 2. We'll get to Spencer here next hour as well. You can join us anytime. The Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line at 866-4FAN. And we're also on Elon's Twitter at The Fan Rochester.
Heart. No matter your team, no matter your game, we talk sports. The Fan, Rochester.
You're back in the sports bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Spencer German, 92.3 The Fan, joining us next hour.
You know, there are ways you can evaluate the talent coming into the draft. And probably the better way to do it, where we all enjoy doing the mocks, it's the big board. We're all familiar with, Mel Kiper, best player available. And at Yahoo, they did their latest big board. Okay, where you're not going by who's drafting what. You're just saying these are the best players in this draft.
Sure,
we think in order. And it's notable that they don't have Cam Ward number 1 overall. They actually have him 8th. They don't have Shedeur Sanders even as a first rounder. Okay, that anybody that takes Sanders, in their opinion, you're drafting a second round corner. Quarterback. Couple interesting things here. They have Hunter going number 1. Abdul Carter is the second best player. When P.J. Glasser said this, I'm like, The third best player that Yahoo has on the board is Ashton Genty.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I'm torn on Genty. There's a part of me that wants to believe that he's going to be a fantastic pro, because you watched him last year, and for the majority of the season, eye-popping numbers, unbelievable playmaker. But then you saw him against Penn State, which felt more like a pro defense. Like you're going up against a different breed of football player than you're used to all season long, and he kind of looked average.
Well, I think whoever's going to draft him, and he is a first-rounder, is going to get a fine pro. But you're talking rare, top 10 running backs should be spectacular. And since 2015, there's only 6 of them, right? Christian McCaffrey, I could name them maybe here. Zeke Elliott, certainly. Bijan Robinson, the guy that, okay, we're hopeful that you see a little bit more. But Genty, to me, at 5'8", and that's what he's listed as, is that durable enough? I don't know, but that's...
Man, he is built, though. That dude is rock solid. I'd be hard-pressed to see him get past the Raiders. It feels like the Raiders need somebody like that in their backfield because they just don't have a run game.
This is interesting to me, though, because when we talk to people, there are 2 names that I don't know if they're within 30, but within striking range for the Buffalo Bills. If you're looking for that big run-stuffing defensive tackle that you can pair alongside Ed Oliver, Derek Harmon being one, Kenneth Grant being the other. You love Grant. Harmon, I think a lot of Bills fans would be happy
Oregon,
with.
Right?
Yep. They rank him 19th. Take a guess where they have Grant. 24th.
Okay.
So that seems right in line where if the Bills, do they have the gumption to let the draft come to them, or are they going to move up just a little bit? If you're curious, I'm like, okay, well, tell me about some corners here, because, you got the guy from Kentucky. Well, he's ranked 47th, Maxwell. Trey Amos, that's another name we've talked about.
Sure.
60th.
So Amos from Ole Miss, Maxwell from Kentucky, who I think both of them have visited the Bills, have they not?
They have.
Yeah.
So, like, if the Bills are just going to, all right, use one of them for the second, if you're just going off of somebody's big board, could the Buffalo Bills actually take the defensive tackle in round 1? Sounds like you can get a corner that maybe can compete, for that spot in round 2.
Yeah, I would love if that's how it played out, but we know that, of course, it never plays out that way, and teams are going to draft based on need, or, they'll always say best player available. Well, that's subjective, and Yahoo's big board certainly doesn't look like Buffalo Bills' big board or Brandon Beane's big board, but I love the exercise, and I love looking to see who falls where. If you're the Titans, you have to go Cam Ward 1. I mean, it's a lock. It's going to happen. You need a quarterback, and he's the best one that's available this year. But that's not the first list that I've seen that does not have Cam Ward as the best player available in this draft. He's not even close.
They have Riley Leonard as a second rounder, quarterback from Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Really? I think our guy down the road at Syracuse, McCord would have been. That's the great thing about the draft.
Will Howard's another one that'll get some looks at quarterback. Jackson Dart, of course, we've spent plenty of time talking about him. So I love it, man. We're almost there. It's a week from tomorrow. round one of the NFL draft. We will be celebrating with our pre-draft draft special, Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue. We're live from 3 until 6 a week from Thursday. And don't forget, it's always a great time for a kind IPA. Join us at Three Heads, and we'll give you everything we have, everything we know, leading up to round one of the NFL draft a week from tomorrow.
Yeah, we have time for your calls on the other side. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. And I got to hear who you're picking for the Cup.
All right, yeah, we'll get to that next, and we'll have Spencer German, 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland, stopping by the sports bar here in about a half hour or so. Stay with us.
950 The Fan Rochester, weekday mornings via the Odyssey app, and make getting out of bed your favorite part of the day. WROC AM, WBEE HD2, and W239BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Final week of the season for the Amherst. Team downtown tonight taking on Cleveland. Zach Metza knows it's a week they got to play well.
So I think that for us, these 3 games are critically important to kind of keep establishing our identity, get to our habits, and play the right way. So it's natural and when the intensity picks up in playoffs.
Don Stevens, Andrew Mossbrooks will have your call beginning at 7 o'clock. The Red Wing game, no surprise if you live in Rochester. We had snow on the ground this morning. They'll make it up as part of a doubleheader coming up on Thursday. On the Major League scoreboard, the Mets have tied it up against the Twins. They're in the bottom of the ninth, 3-3, Mets in Minnesota. Finals from today, Jays over Atlanta 3-1, Milwaukee over Detroit 5-1. It was St. Louis knocking off Houston 4-1. Yankees tonight taking on Kansas City. Gene Battaglia and the sports leader. The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
We are 8 days away from the NFL draft.
And if you need a game record to reach that next level, don't you have to do everything right now to go get that player?
Mike Danger.
I want Kenneth Grant.
Gene Battaglia.
I've come to my conclusion, Danger. Pick 30 for the Buffalo Bills. There's going to be an opportunity for the Bills to move back.
The second half of the NBA's play-in is tonight. Bulls, Heat, and Kings, Mavs. Golden State and Orlando are the 7 seeds in their brackets now, facing the Rockets and Celtics in round 1.
Speaking of Trae Young, Gino, you got any Werthers? I got the grandkids coming over. Spare a cup of Werthers for your buddy Danger.
I actually like Werther's. The butterscotch is delicious.
The Savannah Bananas.
The Cleveland Monsters.
Cleveland.
Hello, Cleveland.
Nico Iamaleava has entered the transfer portal.
Oh, who cares?
Man, there's gold up in them there hills.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester.
Speaking of Cleveland, Spencer German, 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland, stops by the Sports Bar. In about 20 minutes, we welcome you back into Rochester's only local sports talk show. Thanks for joining us at 95.7 FM, AM 950. We sound our best on the free-to-download Odyssey app, and we look our best on our live video stream right now, our YouTube channel, The Fan Rochester. Like and subscribe while you're there. Gino, I was tossing and turning last night. I've come to the conclusion it's going to be a difficult thing for me to say, but I am prepared to give my Stanley Cup champion prediction right now.
It's not the Sabres. It's not the Blackhawks.
This is Toronto's year.
What?
No Boston, no New York. Carolina's down. Florida teams have played a lot of hockey in the past 3 years. John Tavares needs a new deal. He wants to finish his career in Toronto. You've got a coach who knows how to win it all in Craig Berube. You've got consistent goaltending and depth where you can actually ride the hot hand through the postseason between Wall and Stolarz. The captain, Austin Matthews, something to prove. Washington doesn't scare me. The Devils, come on. No one's going to care when I'm right. I hate to say it. This is the Leafs' year. The Leafs are winning the Stanley Cup.
Okay, putting this out there, does the year 1967 worry you at all?
The last time they won the Cup?
Yes. Yes, you want to talk about a drought at a place that loves themselves some hockey. I'm sorry, it's not that easy a path. You think Ottawa's going to be easy? Ottawa. I love this that came across my feed. I totally forgot about this one play. The Ottawa players nailing a slap shot in on an empty net, and then a fight breaks out. The Battle of Ontario.
Can't wait.
It's going to be fantastic. And whoever comes out of that Tampa, Florida series, it's not going to be easy. Like especially if it's Florida. Hello, yeah, we won the Cup.
They played a lot of hockey. They're tired. Fatigue.
I even say the 8th seed, Montreal. If they beat, and granted, they're not even in yet. Dude, come on. I would not take Toronto based on their history, based on the pressure that is in that town.
I'm here to make money. I'm going with Toronto. Toronto to win the Cup. Go ahead. Tell me I'm wrong. I don't care. I know it's not popular. It hurts me to say it. This is Toronto's year.
I don't know, dude. I'm trying to come up with arguments that I say I can't, but you know what? It's hockey.
Right.
Anything's possible.
Right.
That's the thing. Like, I want to say, no, you're wrong, Mike Danger. Carolina is going to win the cup this year. I can't tell you that.
That would be shocking. Carolina winning the cup would be shocking. Tampa winning the cup, I think, would be shocking. They've played a lot of hockey. They're not the same team they were. They do have a very good goaltender. I like Toronto this year. Toronto is my Stanley Cup champion.
The Leafs taking on the Sens. Dan DeLorean's already miserable about this.
Oh, he's like, well, you should take Toronto. They're the better team. All right, fine, I will. Leafs in 5. What do you think?
The team that going into the draft, not sure who their quarterback's going to be. One of their best players is squawking about a contract. And like the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, not a good vibe, as the kids would say.
Yeah, I think very quietly the Steelers are showing pockets of dysfunction. They've been able to hide dysfunction. I think Tomlin is very good at hiding dysfunction because when he speaks, he's a good orator. When he speaks, you believe he's got command of what's going on, and he very well may have command of what's going on. I don't know about the upper management. I don't know about the new GM. I don't know about ownership. Like, there's hints of dysfunction in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and what are they going to go with Mason Rudolph and Jackson Dart as your quarterbacks?
Yikes!
I mean,
Jalen Milroe.
Yeah. Well, this brings us back to they've got this other issue where T.J. Watt, who did danger, had 11.5 sacks, who has been from time to time banged up and look, he's on the wrong side of 30. So Watt right now kind of. Do you get him or not if you're a team? It's a divisive topic, right? Because for Buffalo, yeah, give us a pass rusher. Like, okay, but are you gun shy? Because last time you did this, it didn't exactly work out with Von Miller. And oh, by the way, you didn't have to give up any draft capital. That's the thing. If Watt was just sitting there like Joey Bosa, why not? Joey Bosa, if it doesn't work out, well, see ya. Okay, there was not money well spent, but it didn't cost us a draft pick. But TJ Watt, it's going to cost you A and B. But as far as the B being, all right, how much would it take? What would the Steelers ask for? Mark Cobley, who is a longtime NFL writer covering the Steelers, he went on our sister station 93.7, The Fan in Pittsburgh, and gave his take on what would it take for a team to acquire T.J. Watt. And I think many of us would think, they would probably want a first and more. This was his answer. Quote, not much. A second-round pick, maybe. If you're thinking 1, a 2, and a 3 next year or something like that, you're kidding yourself.
I get that because nobody's going to make that trade when you have to pay the guy anyways, right? So a second, I think if you're Pittsburgh, you would take that right now. You would take that to the bank. And if your team offering a second, you're crazy. Maybe a third for T.J. Watt.
What about a trade down for Buffalo? Like, you're going to move down off of the first-round pick and give us Watt, and we're going to give you, like, say, a third next year. See, that where I keep coming back to is, all right, that's one part of the equation. What does this guy want in a contract? Like, he's on the last year of his deal. You can fit him under the cap now. That's not the issue. The issue is he wants a contract. You can't be the New York Jets here. The New York Jets were like, well, Hassan Reddick, he's not happy in Philadelphia.
Right.
Wants a contract, but you know what? He's going to get here, and he's going to be part of the team. Like, no.
I get it.
The issue doesn't go away.
I think that's the answer that we need to figure out is what is he looking for? If at his age he's looking to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the league, I think a team is foolish if they give him that. So where is it? Because the reports are the Steelers made him an offer, and it was nowhere near what he was looking for in an extension. And that's what prompted the deuces on social media. So where's the middle ground? Is there a middle ground, or is it as simple as, I just need to make more than Garrett? That's it. I just want to make more than Myles Garrett.
Well, he's kidding himself. Is that the case?
That's what I think as well. And also in the background of all of this, you've got Micah Parsons waiting for his extension, and inevitably Parsons will make more than Garrett, Watt, Max Crosby, all of them, because the Cowboys have waited this long. They could have signed him to an extension and gotten a little bit more value, but no, here they are, waiting.
Matt Perino, by the way, probable, maybe questionable. We're trying to time this out. I was texting with him last night as far as next Thursday.
I totally put him on the spot. If he can't make it, I get it. But, we had him live yesterday, and he was talking about going to Verona for their live show. I'm like, that might time out where you're driving through Rochester right around the same time that we're live.
The question is, when do they want him there? And if the answer is 5 o'clock, I think it would work. Oh, my gosh. That's how the Mets lost.
Oh, see, we're distracted.
I am totally distracted.
Totally distracted in the sports bar. This is why day games for the Mets are a problem in the sports bar. They lost to the Twins again.
Can't be losing 2 or 3 to Minnesota. That's gross.
That is gross. And you had some hope there, too. You came back from 3 down, and you tied it up late. Oh, well. Sorry, Gino.
That's fine.
Perino.
Back to where we were talking about. What people actually care about here. That would be the Buffalo Bills. Matt Perino hopefully will be on site, but we'll be talking to him one way or another. He doesn't normally do this, and I get it. Like, he's got his podcast coming up live on Saturday, but he's got this big idea for the Buffalo Bills. Like, what would qualify as a big idea that you would tease? It's either Parsons or Watt, right? Is there any, or you're moving way up in this draft to the top 5, and I don't see that either. Yes, you could have a team that, like Julio Jones, once upon a time, the Falcons moved up from the 20s all the way to number 5, but I don't see that happening either, because tell me what player would be at 5 or 6 that Brandon Beane was like, oh my gosh, that would be the guy that would put us over the top.
Abdul Carter.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking. Abdul Carter will be available at 3. True or false?
True.
New York Giants that have lots of holes to fill. Here's where it gets a little you have that relationship between between Shane and certainly Brandon Beane. Dable would say no to this trade. I think, right? I like that.
I don't see the Bills finding a way from 30 all the way
to 3. The New York media would not accept that whatsoever.
I struggle with that. I mean, if they were going to get all the way up to 3, they would have to do like what they did in the year that they drafted Josh Allen. They'd have to find a way to work up the first round. Like they had Cincinnati's pick, and then from Cincinnati's pick, they moved into the top 10.
Right, like they traded with Tampa eventually. It was like climbing a ladder. You're nowhere near that. You're at 30.
Right.
That point, that year, Danger, they had picks at 22 and 23. And they were able to use Cordy Glenn and some future picks, and they still had a pick in the first round to go get Tremaine Edmonds, which is kind of – that didn't work out how you hope, but that was noteworthy. What would it take to go from 30 to 3? Okay, how about – well, obviously pick 30, both seconds this year, and probably a first and a second next year. And is that really worth it? No, because you need corner, you need this, you need that. So, but I'm curious where Perino's going to go with that. I'm open to anybody's crazy idea at 866-4326, by the way.
Well, go ahead and share your idea. I don't know how crazy your idea is. It actually feels plausible, but rather than do what I did, which is I'm planting my flag on my draft crush, I want Kenneth Grant, University of Michigan, whatever it takes. That's the guy I don't want to see the Bills leave the draft without. You have a different scenario that you're painting.
No, I just think it's right there for the Bills to trade down. At pick 30, all right, I think there's 2 scenarios here in this draft. We kind of, I think we do a good job taking our time and going through the process. And 2 years ago, we figured out, oh my gosh, the Bills could take a tight end here. And they did. Now, jury's still out, I would say, on Dalton Kincaid. It's not a bust. It hasn't been what you hoped for, but maybe year 3, this will show something different. We came to that conclusion. And last year, you and I came to a conclusion. I like Cooper DeJean. You like Ladd McConkey. They didn't go in that direction. But, hey, I'm going to give ourselves a pat on the back here saying, all right, we found guys that we liked here. Anybody I liked at 30. But I could see, Danger, I'm not saying you're wrong here. I could see easily Brandon being like, you know what, we're going to move up to 24, and we're going to go get Kenneth Grant. We're going to give up I could see that easily. And you know what? That would be a win for Buffalo. But let's say the price is too steep and it doesn't work the way that you had planned. If the Bills are on the clock at 30 and there's not that big a difference between corner A and corner B that you might be picking, move out of there. The Browns at 33. I don't think they're taking a quarterback. We'll ask Spencer German coming up next. Cleveland. And if it's not Cleveland, well, you're the Giants. You want to jump Cleveland. If you're the Raiders, you would love to jump all of them. Like a Jackson Dart or a Jalen Milroe or somebody who is sitting there at the end of round 1. Do you really want to take your chances and wait until Friday?
The benefit being that for a quarterback-hungry team, you get your quarterback on that rookie deal, that first-round rookie deal with the fifth-year option, and you have got a cost-controlled solution at the most important position in the game. But are any of those quarterbacks worth moving up for? Is Jackson Dart worth moving up for? Is Will Howard worth, whoever it is, Kyle McCord, right? Like, you probably don't need to move up for those guys. Are they first-round talent guys? Is it worth getting them on that 5-year rookie deal with the fifth-year option and the control? I see the wisdom in what you're saying. So the Bills would ultimately end up with multiple. They already have multiple second-rounders, but 3 second-rounders.
And then I hear the objection here, okay? And we've been saying this too. And in fact, I forget, it was Perino quoting us back. Not all 10 of these picks are making the Buffalo Bills roster.
Say it all the time.
You could say, all right, we'll put them on the practice squad. No, it doesn't work that way. You put them on the practice squad, they're going to get picked off. Or you put them on the practice squad, remember, you got to release them, and they're going to get gobbled up by somebody in August if they're good.
Mm-hmm.
You always are going to have injuries. I just am saying, Danger, you take that capital, and then maybe you're moving back up. You're not going to get a second-rounder moving down to 33 with Cleveland. Maybe you get a third or fourth. Then you take capital from later in the draft, and you move, shoot back up, and you get an extra pick on a Friday, second or third round. I like
it. Yeah, I like it. I like that idea. I think that would be a win for Buffalo as much as I believe that moving up and getting your guy, if he's there, is a win as well. Let's face it, the draft, we believe, begins at pick 2 with the Cleveland Browns. What do? It feels more and more likely that it'll be Travis Hunter. We'll get Spencer German at 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland on with us next to get his thoughts on the Browns draft strategy, what needs they have, and whether or not that scenario that we just played out where the Cleveland Browns trade back into the first round is a plausible one. Spencer German with some 585 roots, our buddy, coming in to join us next in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia on The Fan.
in the Emmerich season, including tonight. Rochester hosting Cleveland. Mike Leone on the opponent.
They're a really desperate team, man. They're 1 point out of the third seed, and I think that's really important to get the bye. So they're going to come and they're going to push, and they got a couple really good players that could hurt you. So we just have to make sure that we're ready to go and ready to play because they got guys that could really expose you.
First game for the Emmerich since last Friday. Don Stevens, Andrew Mossbrooks will have your call tonight beginning at 7 here on The Fan. Red Wing game, no surprise with the snow today. Called off. They'll make it as part of a doubleheader tomorrow against Worcester. On the Major League scoreboard, the Mets fall in 10 innings at Minnesota 4-3. Jays over the Braves 3-1. No score between the Cubbies and the Padres there in the second. Yankees tonight taking on Kansas City. Gene Battaglia on the sports leader, The Fan Rochester.
Straight up with no chaser. You're in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
My anticipation expectation is that he'll have a direct ticket from Cleveland to Canton at the end of this year, and expect him to be here, and retire Brown, quite frankly.
This Browns GM Andrew Berry earlier in the offseason when Myles Garrett was supposedly on the trade block. Well, he's staying in Cleveland, and Cleveland is really where the draft starts at 2. We welcome in our buddy Spencer German, 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland, to talk a little bit about the Browns offseason, their strategy heading into next week's draft. And Spencer, the last time we had you on, it was all about Myles Garrett. It was all about whether or not we wanted to believe that he was going to be on the block and whether or not teams would be willing to pry him away from Cleveland. The answer to that is no. And now your sights are squared solely on number 2 overall in the draft a week from tomorrow night. How are you, Spencer?
Doing well. Yeah, it's been a pretty crazy off season. When you start with the Myles Garrett news, you sort of get off to a hot start there with just everything that's going on with the team, and then it sort of evolves into having different conversations about what the Browns are doing it to and the quarterback position, if anyone's worthy of that spot, and all these different things. So it's been a little bit of a roller coaster ride, but I do think that the Myles Garrett decision sort of settled things a little bit here in Cleveland, and now it is all eyes on what they're going to do with the number 2 overall pick, and I think they have some solid options that probably aren't necessarily quarterback related, because it does feel like in recent weeks the momentum has shifted more towards they're not going to go quarterback, and at one point I think it was very heavily Abdul Carter. Now I feel like it's more so Travis Hunter.
Well, before we dive into the options here and the decision makers and the lay of the land in Cleveland, give us the final word here on Garrett, because boy, oh boy, when you put out a statement and you're going down to Radio Row, we really thought, okay, he's making a convincing case he wants to go elsewhere. Was it a case of this was really plan A all along? I just need a new contract and I'll stay, and even though I'm going to dial up the rhetoric to make it sound that way? Or in your opinion, Spencer, was there a change of heart by Myles Garrett somewhere along the way?
Yeah, so he actually used those exact words that you said at the very end there as the reason for sticking around, that he had a change of heart and things kind of changed. I still go back to and believe that this was all done with the purpose of he had his eyes elsewhere. He wanted to go somewhere and compete, and Myles has always been that kind of guy. He's always talked about, the individual accolades are great. And I think he knows now that he has a Defensive Player of the Year under his belt, he is very much on a Hall of Fame trajectory. He believes he probably would be, if he retired right now, he probably would have a really good case to be in Canton already. I think he recognizes that about himself. But for him, it's always been about winning, and he wants to chase championships. And even when he's winning all these individual accolades or he's reaching all these individual milestones like he did last year, he sits there and talks about, Lawrence Taylor was talked about as an all-time great, not just because of those things, but because he also won Super Bowls, and I want that too. So I think in his heart of hearts, he truly wanted to go to a place where he could feel like he was winning, he could win more or sooner rather than later, I guess I should say. But I do think when push came to shove, the Browns made him that offer he couldn't refuse, right? To give him $40 million a year guaranteed, make him the highest paid non-quarterback in football. That's a pretty enticing way to convince somebody, hey, why don't you stick around? Yeah. Why don't you be part of this moving forward? And so I think the money part of it certainly spoke to him. On some level, I think the Browns probably did have a better, when they first talked back in the end of the season, I'm sure they couldn't tell him flat out like, hey, here's exactly everything we're going to do. There's still so much evaluating you have to do. So maybe they did give him a better plan. Like, it feels like they kind of were able to pitch him on something of, hey, here's what we're thinking. Here's what we want to do. Here's our options. We like these quarterbacks. We don't like these quarterbacks. I'm not saying they told him everything, but it feels like the money was the biggest thing to kind of get him back on board. But I do think like he understood a clearer picture of what the team was trying to do to sort of remain competitive, even if it's going to take a couple years to get back to that. And clearly he was okay with that.
Spencer German and 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland, our guest in the Sports Bar Danger and Battaglia on The Fan Rochester. Spencer, back to pick number 2. You mentioned it was Abdul Carter, maybe it's Travis Hunter. Either way, you're getting a really, really good player if you stay put at 2. What about quarterback? Because we've identified Shedeur as the quarterback with the widest variance, right? Like, it wouldn't shock us if the Browns said Shedeur is going at 2. It would also not shock us if Shedeur fell all the way beyond Pittsburgh at 21 if they chose to do so. What's your thoughts on Sanders and the Browns and their need for a quarterback here at some point, you would imagine, during this draft?
Yeah, I think Sanders is actually one of the more interesting and unique, I guess, circumstances when it comes to especially the quarterback position that we've probably ever, between, I'm sure you guys and myself have ever sort of had to cover when it comes to an NFL draft. Obviously there's the backstory of he's Deion Sanders' kid. But on top of that, I just think, to your point, like, the variance is crazy. Like, there are projections that say, like, oh, he could go top 10, and then you're hearing from other people that he doesn't even have a first-round grade for a lot of these scouts or scouting departments or teams. And so it's kind of interesting. Like, where he goes feels very much like a wild card. The Saints felt like a real possibility last weekend when the news about Derek Carr comes out, but now they're saying the Saints maybe are okay, like, trotting out Spencer Rattler next year and seeing what he brings to the table with a full year sort of under his belt before they would maybe draft Shedeur Sanders at 9. So if he gets past 9 and falls into the teens, like, I think all bets are off in terms of like where he could go. I still do think he is the second best quarterback in this draft. I actually think he's good enough, and I've seen enough from him to believe that he'd be a great fit in Kevin Stefanski's offense, that if the Browns were to take him at 2, I would totally understand it, especially because I just think in general, like, you always overdraft quarterbacks a little bit, right? Like, even if Shedeur Sanders is on the Browns board as like the 20th best player, if that's where you think you have to take him because somebody else might get him before you and you think he's your guy, like, you'd have to take him at probably earlier than what you would anticipate, even maybe at 2, if you think he really is a franchise quarterback. But the Browns, they can get away with, I think, passing on somebody like Shedeur at 2 if they're taking Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, to your earlier point, because those are the 2, like, no doubt blue chip players in this class, it feels. Other teams that maybe pass on him, if he ends up being good, it'll look worse for them than what it might look like for Cleveland. But yeah, I'm a fan of Shedeur's. I like his, people call it arrogance and brashness. I actually think that confidence is something that's valuable for a quarterback, and he's a guy who, especially in Cleveland, where they've never been able to settle that position, if he comes in, like, you feel like he can handle anything, and I think I kind of admire that about him. So if Cleveland were to get him at some point, I think it'd be worth it. But it definitely feels like right now things are trending towards Travis Hunter being more so the pick and maybe waiting on a quarterback until later.
Yeah, so that was going to be my next question. Spencer German, 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland. When we look at the Browns' depth chart at quarterback and, Kenny Pickett, I think Deshaun Watson not going to be available. I mean, do you expect the Browns to select a quarterback? And I'm going to present a scenario to you, because if they've got another quarterback they feel this could be the guy, I don't know if they, or say right behind them the Giants, or right behind them the Raiders, any team in the top of the second round that still needs a quarterback, do you feel comfortable waiting until Friday, or do you just get it done there and you eliminate those other teams? Do you trade back into the first round? And Spencer, I know a team right down the road here that has pick number 30. Let's make a deal here between Cleveland and Buffalo.
So I'd actually love that, to be honest. And I've actually been banging the drum for whether they want to take a quarterback or not. I think they should trade back into the first round, because to me, if they want a quarterback, it absolutely makes sense. Even if they want like an offensive tackle, right, like, which is another need for this team, I think it also makes sense, because this is a Browns team that is trying to sort of rebuild somewhat quickly here. And the best way to do that is, like, if you hit on players in the first round
and you have 5 years with them to allow them to develop and kind of become stable players before you got to pay them again. And the Browns, given their financial situation, like they could afford to have that on a number of guys, not just one guy. And also, if you think about like the core of this team, right? It's David Njoku, it's Myles Garrett. Like those guys were taken in the same draft class. It's guys. Nick Chubb was a year later, but like those guys were all sort of taken early on in the draft, and you had fifth-year options on some of these key players. So I think being able to do that, get two guys in the first round that you then control for 5 years would be massive, whether it's a quarterback or not. But it does feel more and more likely that if they stand pat, take somebody like Travis Hunter of 2. That quarterback is kind of the next thing on the menu for them. And there's been a number of names sort of floated. I know they've hosted just about all the top names on pre-draft visits. Jackson Dart's come to Cleveland. Jalen Milroe's come to Cleveland. They had private workouts with both those guys. Tyler Shuck obviously has come to Cleveland as well. That's another guy they could consider. I'm kind of curious, though, to see like where the run goes on these quarterbacks, because after Cam Ward, again, we don't know where Shedeur is going to fall to. And then after that, it's like that next group, where does it all sort of happen? And the Browns could theoretically be the start of that in round 2 at 33, or if they take one at the very end of day 1. And I also think like how far Shedeur falls plays a role in this too, because if he falls into striking distance, like beyond the top, but beyond like 24, 25, somewhere around there, then I definitely think the Browns could potentially look to trade back up and try to get him in the late first round as well. So it's a fascinating topic. I'll say this, like part of me just feels like this team is going to end up with Jalen Milroe as their guy. Maybe it's the Tommy Rees connection that I keep leaning on, where he coached him in college for a year. I don't necessarily. I'm not totally enamored with Milroe, because I think there's just too many inaccuracies there in his passing game. I know he's done some work on his footwork this offseason already, but I don't know that I love him as a prospect, and I think there's a lot to correct. But I for some reason, I have this gut feeling that that's the guy that they really might be after with potentially pick 33.
Spencer, break down the quarterback room as it stands right now in Cleveland. We've got the giant albatross of a contract in Deshaun Watson, and we're not going to see him this year with the Achilles pop. You've got a very confident, you mentioned confidence is an ability that you want to have if you're an NFL quarterback. Well, Kenny Pickett sure seems like he's going to play, or he wants to play. He's telling everybody at the Pitt spring game that he's going to be competing to be the starter there. And then, of course, you brought in Joe Flacco as well for a return visit to Cleveland and work with Kevin Stefanski. How does this all play out, assuming – how does it look right now today before we even get to the draft and the opportunity to draft another quarterback?
Yeah, I think from the outside looking in, like fans are really excited about Joe Flacco for obvious reasons. 2023 was this magical ride with him over those 5 games at the end of the season where he takes you to the playoffs, and it's just kind of this magical fun thing, and he becomes this like part of Cleveland sports lore in the matter of weeks. And so people are excited to have him back. I think there's some hope that he knows the system. He just ran it recently. He was a good fit for Kevin Stefanski's offense, and that he can replicate some of that here. But I'm kind of going into this not expecting Joe Flacco to play like all 17 games or anything if he earns the starting job. So my view on this as it stands today is that like all these guys, including a rookie that they're probably going to draft next week, come in and they pitch this whole thing as a quarterback, like an open competition through spring, OTAs, veteran minicamp, etc. Training camp opens, it'll sort of stay that way. And then their hope is that Joe Flacco ends up being the guy who kind of comes out of it getting the starting job. And then we'll see how long he's able to play and what the offense kind of looks like. And once it starts to maybe falter or waver, maybe then they'll go to Kenny Pickett and give him a try. And then I do think, like, if you draft a rookie, you owe it to yourself to see that guy in year 1, because if they're right back in the conversation next year for a quarterback, you got to get a sense of, okay, who is this guy that we have? Can he be something? Do we have to prioritize quarterback? So I'm kind of already going into 2025 expecting that we're going to see probably all 3 of the quarterbacks that get talked about here over the course of the next week once they draft one, and that all those guys are going to play after some sort of competition takes place throughout the off-season stuff.
We're talking to Rochester native Spencer German, who covers the Browns, Cleveland sports for our sister station, 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland. And Spencer, we've had you on over the years, at least since, we realized, man, this is the worst contract in NFL history with Deshaun Watson. Some sort of variance of the question here that always comes your way, like how do the Browns get out from underneath this? And, boy, since we last talked to you, there's another restructure that happened. That was back in March, giving the Browns the needed cap room to sign Myles Garrett. But I guess my question is, because you hear these murmurs about injuries, everything else, I mean, is there a scenario where the Browns could actually get out from underneath this anytime soon?
I guess it depends on your definition of anytime soon. This year, no. The dead cap hit is like over 170 million for this year if they were to release him or move on from him in any capacity. And the restructure, like they set that contract up to be restructured every year anyway, so it kind of was just what they anticipated doing regardless to just create cap space. So that was always expected. If you're looking for like a timeline of when they can kind of move on from this, and that restructure that they did, I think was the key moment for this. It's next year. It's next off season. They will have the ability with Deshaun going into the last year of his deal to potentially cut him and designate it as a June 1st cut where they can split the dead cap hit over 2 years. Next year's the 2026 season, then 2027, even though he won't be on the roster. And the cap hit for that will be significantly less than this year based off splitting it into 2 years. It would still be, I think, over like 100 million, but they can split it twice and it goes down to like 50 something and 50 something, which that when the grand scheme of things, like $50 million is about the going price for quarterbacks these days anyway for the elite guys. So not that he's obviously elite, but you get the idea. So in some respects, like they're just kind of paying for this guy not to be here. It's a big amount to eat though for those 2 years, but you'll sort of just live with that and try to get through the other side and hope that you hit on a guy probably in the draft either this year or next year that becomes your franchise quarterback. And if they do that, people will be able to sort of forget about Deshaun pretty quickly. So yes, he is going to be sort of this dark cloud hanging over the organization for 2025 that is unlikely to play, to your point. But by this time next year, I would assume that we're talking about Deshaun Watson that's either looking for a job or is getting maybe a third chance somewhere on like a whim for some team that's just like, we'll just give it a shot with him and see if we can sort of make him into some reclamation project. But that's kind of the visions, I think, of the out or the door that the Browns can sort of take, or the lever that they can pull to get out from Deshaun Watson, but it won't come until around this time next year.
I think he's played his last down in the NFL, Spencer. I mean, I struggle to see a team next offseason, if the Browns move on from him, that will say, oh yeah, we see a quarterback here that can be productive or at minimum be a backup for us. He just looked through the minimal amount of times we had to see him during his time in Cleveland, a quarterback who lost his confidence, a quarterback who just lost his ability, lost his way entirely. And let me know if you buy into this, because I believe that most competitive athletes, the elite competitive athletes, the ones that are the top of their tier, they all have a bit of a dark side to them. And that dark side gets shelved. And when it gets exposed, and we've seen this with athletes like Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, and I'm not comparing Deshaun Watson to either of them, but when that dark side gets exposed, you're not the same player moving forward. It's a lack of confidence that comes with that exposure.
I think that's very true, and I think that's probably the biggest reason why this didn't work out for the Browns was they said they vetted him and they did all this, deep digging into the off the field stuff, the lawsuits that were filed against him, and like what was going to happen, and they tried to sort of prepare for it and whatever. I think the one thing they missed though was how all of that stuff was going to impact him mentally. I don't think they accounted for that. Like he gives off this persona that he's very confident. He doesn't listen to the outside noise, but then he's constantly on social media. I mean, even as recently as like last week, sort of responding to the comments made by Jimmy Haslam at the owners' meetings about how the trade was a big swing and a miss. Like he's constantly responding to things and then saying, I don't hear it, I don't see it. So clearly that's weighed on his psyche. Clearly it's something that's in his head. And yeah, like I just clear that, to me, that's been the biggest issue is like mentally, he just doesn't look like the same quarterback. He's not processing things as cleanly. It feels like he wants everything back on like one play. Like I'm going to earn everybody back on this one play. And it was always going to be a process. If he was going to get back to being that player he used to be, then yeah, I think he probably could have won people over, at least in Cleveland again. But it was going to take a lot of time to do that. And you were going to have to sort of prove it. And it never came to fruition. I tend to agree with you that he probably has played his last down. The only thing I hold on to is that for some reason, man, like these quarterbacks always get a little extra grace than other positions. And if there was ever a point where you were talented, somebody is always willing to sort of give you a shot, especially if it's going to be on like the vet minimum or something. So I know Albert Breer wrote a piece about this a couple weeks ago about how like there was a couple of executives you talked to and some of them said he'll never play again. And then some said, well, I could see somebody maybe giving him a shot like one more time, like a really minimal deal. I think that kind of speaks to the variance on it. Like there could be all it takes is one team to just be like, yeah, we'll give it a shot. I think the off the field stuff might be enough for people to be like, we're just going to stay away. Everything's too toxic. He's not good enough. But I'll be interested to see like how his career plays out from here, if he has a career from here once his time with Cleveland's over.
Yeah, pick 2 for the Cleveland Browns, and kind of looking like it'll be in the direction of Travis Hunter, our guest, Spencer German, Rochester native, the fan in Cleveland, where. Look, anytime there's a quarterback involved or you're picking number 2, I would think it's the owner. And to me, Jimmy Haslam, not a liked guy, I would think, by most people in the NFL. You could tell us better in Cleveland these days. To me, it just seems like a living version of Mr. Burns, the way he looks and sits with his money there. What Haslam, how much influence is he going to have at pick 2? Is he actually going to let Barry make this pick?
Yeah, so the sort of arc of Jimmy Haslam has been interesting because there was a time where he meddled a ton, and I think that cost the Browns at times, and people pointed it out and tried to make it a point in saying this is why the organization can't get out of their own way because the owner sort of does too much and has wields too much of a big stick, I guess, in some respects, and doesn't let his guys do their job. I think he's eased off of that a little bit with at least this current regime, where he allows his people to sort of, not to say he doesn't still have influence, not to say he's not still, helping make decisions or giving his input on things, but I don't know that he's necessarily like he's the one making the pick these days. I think he does trust Andrew Berry and his staff to sort of do those things. Now, there's always the chance that like Jimmy Haslam is kind of unpredictable, right? Like he could come into the draft room and bang the table for somebody and be like, I really want this guy. And then everything changes because that's who you're drafting. And there's obviously been plenty of reports about his involvement in the Deshaun Watson decision. And he's obviously the one who wrote the check to him. So, he gets final say in all these things. I think a lot of owners get final say in a lot of things though. So I think the relationship, I mean, listen, the Deshaun thing is a big stain, I think, for him as an owner. And the fans are always going to remember that on top of some of the other miscues that they've had over the years. But the one thing I will say in Jimmy Haslam's defense is like the thought process behind the Deshaun situation. I get like you haven't been able to figure out this position in decades, right? They finally wanted to get it right, and they took a chance on a guy, yes, with all the off the field problems, but that at one point was one of the best quarterbacks in football. Like, I can't blame them for thinking about, like, we need to upgrade this position. Let's go all out. And Jimmy Haslam has the money to spend, right? Like, he's willing to throw money around to make the team better, and he does, I think, deserve some credit for that. It's just he hasn't spent that money necessarily in the right places, clearly, and that's why the Browns are where they're at. But, yeah, I don't know, like, how he's viewed by other owners around the NFL. I know they didn't like him giving this a contract to Deshaun Watson, but I do think fans in Cleveland, while some are still very angry just about everything he's done, I think some do understand, like, he was trying to do right by the fans and the team when they went and got Deshaun and trying to pay for a top flight quarterback, and they understand, like, he has kind of eased off a little bit of just like making every big decision and sort of allowing his football guys to do what they do best.
Spencer, the NBA postseason here. The Cavs are a lot of fun. Which team provides the best matchup for the Cavs heading into round one?
It's a good question. I was actually just talking about this a little bit earlier. I think the fact that they avoid Orlando is actually kind of nice. Listen, I think any of these teams they would have played in the first round, they win in 5. But Orlando is such a physical team, the way they play, and the Cavs have had such injury issues over the last couple of years in the playoffs that I'm just glad they sort of avoided them entirely. So, honestly, the way that the Hawks played in that game the other night, it kind of looks like they're ready to go on a long vacation and get to the off season. So if somehow the Hawks end up winning the next game and they're the 8th seed, that feels like a team that's ready to quit. So I guess I'd prefer them. I want to stay away from the Heat. There's just something about the Heat that they're always a tough out. So I'd rather not play them. But I guess if I have to pick, I'd say the Hawks. Give us kind of
the feeling there in Cleveland. And I know you weren't there in 2016. I was there. I was at a Cleveland baseball game. They were playing the Mets. But what I remember about that, Spencer, was the crowd wasn't great that day because, well, the Cavs were beginning the playoffs. And for folks who don't know, the arena is right next to the baseball stadium. The town, that was all the talk. I turned on the radio, and it was Cavs. And that was LeBron and Kevin Love. And they ended up winning the championship. So here are the Cavs, the top seed in the East. Is that the expectation? Because it was back in 2016, or is it just, okay, let's see if we can get by Boston?
Yeah, I think there's tempered expectations. I do think people, they set the bar high for this team given how great their season was, where they're saying this team can win a championship, and they obviously want to see it. I think a lot of it, too, is just excitement about this team doing something and being relevant and having such a successful season without LeBron, because so much of this team's history right now is tied to LeBron, right? So it's kind of fun that they got to experience a year where it wasn't him sort of leading this charge and this team being good behind him. I think people are enjoying that ride, but I do think everyone understands Boston is the elephant in the room, if you will, where they know if they get to the Eastern Conference Finals and play them, it's not going to be easy. And I would hope most fans aren't going to think it's like a failed season if they were to lose to Boston in 6 or 7 games, but they play some tight ones with them and, give them a good fight. I think that sort of sets the tone for how can they get better and try to get closer to that team that's such a juggernaut right now. But, yeah, I think people will go in with confidence feeling that they have a shot in that series, especially knowing that you have home court advantage for a potential Game 7 on your floor.
Spencer, when do you want to get on the Fan? When can we check you out in the free-to-download Odyssey app?
Yeah, I should be on tomorrow afternoon. We're doing a live remote for this giraffe show out in Cleveland, so that'll be kind of fun. And then also Friday afternoon, so 2 to 7 is the time slot that I'll be filling in. And yeah, looking forward to a fun week here with the draft ahead, and I'm sure there'll be lots to talk about after the Browns obviously bring in some new players, especially at number 2. So appreciate you guys having me on, man, as always.
All right, thanks, Spencer. Appreciate you as filling us in on the Browns there. Spencer German, Rochester native now. And again, if you want more sports about your favorite city, just download the Odyssey app.
Yeah, right.
You can listen, or the Fan in New York, or any the EI in Boston. That's the way to
Eagles fan, WIP in Philadelphia. Bears fan, Score in Chicago. Cowboys fan, the Fan in Dallas. We got them all.
Yeah,
we got them all. So yeah, the Odyssey app is great for the sports fan, and you'll hear plenty of Spencer in the coming days and weeks on 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland. Browns fans, check that out. Appreciate Spencer giving us his time.
So are we ready to say, are we close to saying that the draft starts with the Giants at 3? Because we know the Titans are taking Cam Ward. I'm not quite there yet, but if I had to place a bet, it seems like Travis Hunter is the smart pick. That's what the Browns will do. That's what they should do.
Yeah, who's throwing him the football? That's he could be, and will you bend to his wish of playing both ways?
Yes, and here's how you do it. You're a full-time corner, and we're going to put in some packages for you at wide receiver. The end. So, you're going to play 10 downs at wide receiver. If that goes well, we'll give you a little bit more. I mean, that's not crazy, is it?
I'm trying to remember the last time we saw a player do it. I mean, recency bias for me, Devin Hester did it with the Bears for a period of time where he did both. I mean, he's returning kicks. He was receiver and a corner, but it's a tough thing, man. I mean, you hear a lot of coaches, and I think John Harbaugh was the last to say, I don't know that any player has the kind of time to learn both sides of the ball in today's NFL. And maybe he doesn't have to. Maybe it is just a couple of plays that he needs to understand on the offensive side of the ball. That'll be interesting. And I'm with you. I'm not ready to say that the draft starts at 3. Yeah, Carter's nice. Carter's nice. That's a good player. But Hunter is electric and will be a lot of fun in the NFL for sure. All right, we'll get to happy hour next on the Fan Rochester talking about the draft. Gino has laid out his scenario, the way he wants to see it go down for the Buffalo Bills. Yesterday I gave you my Bills draft crush, the guy that I don't want to see them leave without in round 1. Gino's going to tell you why he believes there's a better course of action for the Buffalo Bills. We'll get into that. And, of course, we'll take your calls at 866-4326 if you want to pull up a stool and join us during happy hour. 585-866-4FAN.
950 The Fan Rochester weekday mornings, because who needs more sleep when you can have sports excitement? WROC AM, WBEE HD2 Rochester, and streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
It's the final week of the regular season for the Rochester Americans. Beginning tonight, the team hosting Cleveland. Zach Metza knows what the objective is this week.
So I think that for us, these three games are critically important to kind of keep establishing our identity, get to our habits, and play the right way. So it's natural, and when the intensity picks up in playoffs.
With the snow on the ground this morning, the Rochester Red Wings game was called off today. They'll make it up as part of a doubleheader coming up on Thursday. On the Major League scoreboard, the Mets falling in 10 at Minnesota, 4-3 the final. The Jays over the Braves, 3-1. Spencer Strider going 5 innings for the Braves in his first start in a year. The Cardinals over the Astros by a 4-1 score. Padres are up on the Cubs 2-1 in the fourth. Yankees tonight hosting Kansas City. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader. The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
We are 8 days away from the NFL draft.
And if you need a game record to reach that next level, don't you have to do everything right now to go get that player?
Mike Danger.
I want Kenneth Grant.
Gene Battaglia.
I've come to my conclusion, Danger. Pick 30 for the Buffalo Bills. There's going to be an opportunity for the Bills to move back.
The second half of the NBA's play-in is tonight. Bulls, Heat, and Kings, Mavs. Golden State and Orlando are the 7 seeds in their brackets now, facing the Rockets and Celtics in round 1.
Speaking of Trae Young, Gino, got any Werthers? I got the grandkids coming over. Spare a cup of Werthers for your buddy Danger?
I actually like Werthers. The butterscotch is delicious.
The Savannah Bananas.
The Cleveland Monsters.
Cleveland.
Hello, Cleveland.
Nico Iamaleava has entered the transfer portal.
Oh, who cares?
Man, there's gold up in them there hills.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester.
It's happy hour, and we have time for your calls if you want to join us. 585-866-4FAN, our phone number. We're on X, at The Fan Rochester. Streaming live on our YouTube channel, The Fan Rochester, on YouTube and on Twitch as well, and sounding our best, the free-to-download Odyssey app. Welcome back into the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Don't appreciate you or Dandalorian, whoever did that AI version of my voice, saying I like Werthers.
You do. You admitted it on these airwaves, and we always roll the tape.
That was AI. That was not me.
Always roll the tape in the Sports Bar. We're about accountability. We'll hold you to your words. It's why I said with a lot of reservation, my pick to win the Stanley Cup playoffs this year, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to care when I'm right. But when I'm wrong, I'll hear it. I'm sure I will hear it.
I don't think so on that one. Just because so many people have kind of, I'm going to say, falling in that trap you're falling into. Like, oh, this is the Leafs here, this is the Leafs here. And you're going off not based on, man, Toronto, they're playing great hockey. Look, they're the second seed. You're going off in the Eastern Conference is down overall. The blue chip teams, your Bruins, they're not in. The Rangers, heck, they didn't even make it back this year. Oh, the Lightning and Panthers, well, one of those teams will be out. I'm sorry, like if the Panthers beat the Lightning, I would stand to take the Panthers over the Maple Leafs there.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot at stake. I feel like Matthews, who was kind of down in the Four Nations, has an opportunity here to kind of cement his legacy now, his first year as captain of the Leafs. Tavares wants a new deal. He wants to retire in Toronto. You've got steady goaltending. You've got a head coach in Berube who knows what this grind is all about, having won it in St. Louis a few years ago. Isn't that funny, too? Like, that guy was out there.
I know.
Guy was out there. I mean, he ain't picking up the phone if he sees Kevin Adams' number.
I was the one banging the drum for Lindy Ruff, Danger. And it was more of, all right, well, if this team can't win, can I at least feel good about it? And we love Lindy, and Now, the answer is no.
Doesn't
Not
matter.
at all.
not a strong enough deodorant for this franchise. The Amerks are on the ice tonight at Blue Cross Arena, home matchup against Cleveland. Cleveland desperate to try and get that 3 seed in the North Division. We'll have that action for you here. Don Stevens and Andrew Mossbrooks will have the call just after 7.
Quick thought on this.
Yeah.
Like, is it a trap if you're just taking your foot off the pedal a little bit? So if you're not following that closely, here's the situation with the Amerks. 3 games left. They're locked in their playoff spot. They are the 2nd seed. Who do they play? Could be more than likely Syracuse, but it might be Cleveland, especially if they win tonight. Toronto's also a possibility. You don't have to play that 4-5. You get the home ice. We've heard the 24th will be game 1. Friday the 24th, game 1, Blue Cross Arena. Mike Danger, if you're trying different players out tonight and you're treating this like week 18 of the NFL season, I mean, these are young guys. Can you flip the switch in time? That's going to be a test for Mike Leone when the Calder Cup playoffs come around.
This is Mike Leone yesterday here in the Sports Bar talking about this final 3-game stretch.
We got some big pieces out. There's a little bit of managing loads a little bit. So, we have an idea of what we're going to do in goal, but other than that, there's going to be a lot of different guys getting opportunities on the power play, and we still got to play good hockey and play the game the right way. We can't just mail these last 3 games in. We're going to play the 18 skaters that would give us a chance to win, and we're going to try to win the game. I think we got to be smart right now about the lineup and what we're going to do, so there's still some things we got to sort out and make a decision.
All right, so the question is, too, because the Sabre season wraps up tomorrow night, well, who do you – Kozak, even though he hasn't been healthy, he's going to be coming back. The question is Yuri Kulik. And to hear Brian Koziel, to hear some other people say, hey, this would benefit not just Kulik, but certainly the Amerks and the organization overall. That's the million-dollar question. Will the Rochester Americans get Yuri Kulik back for the postseason, or are we all going to do the same mistake that the damn organization did 2 years ago with UPL, say, no, he's earned the right. He's an NHLer. Really? Because he doesn't look like an NHL goaltender to me this year.
I love the phrase that the best form of development is winning. And if you really, truly want to develop these guys, then get them in a winning situation in the postseason. Let them win and let them know what that feels like so that they can have a long career at the NHL level. We'll see what the decision is there in terms of Kulik. And we'll pay attention to the final 3 games of the regular season for the Rochester Americans. All can be heard on your home for Amerks Hockey, the Fan Rochester, tonight just after 7 from Blue Cross Arena. Gino, there's a bit of Bills news today. A veteran corner stopping by one Bills drive, and that would be James Bradbury. Well, you know that name. That's because he just played 2 years. He played a couple of years with the Eagles. He played 2 years for the Giants before he went to Philadelphia. You remember him from the Super Bowl against
Yeah, he got called for defensive holding. The Chiefs ran out the clock. That's what we know James Bradbury for. I kind of forgot how he came into the league, though.
Yeah, he came into the league as a 2016 second-round pick. The Carolina Panthers.
So
McDermott and Bean were both in the organization at the time. Feels like it might be a little bit of a favor. At minimum, you have them come in.
Is it, or you just need 90 guys?
Well, you need 90 guys.
You need 90 guys.
And he is, 31 years old, same age as Rasul Douglas, who's still on the market. He was released by the Eagles after he missed all of last season. He tore his Achilles last summer. This was Steve Tasker and Matty Glab earlier on James Bradbury on One Bills Live.
Bradbury has ties to our general manager, Brandon Beane, and head coach Sean McDermott because he was drafted by the Panthers in 2016 when McDermott was the defensive coordinator and when Beane was the assistant GM. Bradbury was drafted by the Panthers in the second round of the 2016 draft. He's a 9-year vet who started in every game he's played in. That number is 124, has 19 career interceptions. Bradbury had 1 interception in 16 games last season. His career high was 4 in 2021 with the Giants, so has had a couple different stops across the NFL.
Yeah, we're seeing highlights too. He picked Josh Allen off when he was playing for the Eagles, Bradbury, and has played for a couple of teams, the Giants, Eagles, and of course Carolina. So he's bounced around a little bit, but certainly the Bills continuing to sift through the cornerback market before we get to the draft.
Which makes sense. You want to do your due diligence of turning over every stone and making sure that you've visited with some of these veterans, knowing that you can't 100% be sure of what's going to happen in the NFL draft, especially sitting at number 30.
All right, so the last corner on the roster, you're not paying. Okay, like that. Let's kind of get that clear here. Another thing I'd like to kind of make clear here, if you're upset about this, the true or false, the corner starting opposite Christian Benford this coming season, week 1, he's not on the roster right now.
I agree with that. I think that's true.
I think it's coming from the draft. You want to hit in the pick 30 or the second round, and maybe if it's not week 1 danger, at some point you hand the baton off at that point. The corner position is something where you're going to need, and I'm okay with bringing in another corner maybe to teach. My question would be, all right, what about Tre'Davious White? I know a lot of people would say, oh, he's washed. Well, Bradbury didn't even play. He's coming off a major injury. So, again, just under the context of you need 90 guys in camp, maybe Bradbury, if he beats out Dane Jackson for the last corner position, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're going to bring up White, I'd bring up Douglas, who's still a free agent and same age as Bradbury. He's familiar with the organization. Just played for him last year, all season. Well, we'll see. Nothing imminent in terms of a signing. We'll kind of keep tabs on that here. And, it is the season of lying. Maybe they're using James Bradbury as a prop for some other teams to look at. Oh, the Bills are really shopping for corners.
I think this is interesting too, Danger. There is one other Bills note that we learned today. It's not really kind of out to the public, but every year you have, every team has to make their general manager available. And Brandon Beane will do these talks. We had the talk down in Jacksonville where the GM farted last year. like that's where that came from. The Bills talk hasn't happened yet. It's going to be Tuesday. So we're going to have Brandon Beane up there, and Beane will, as you would expect, give you a word salad. We might think we might be able to pick up a signal or two. I'm not so sure. I would ask him how many first-round grades. He won't probably answer that. I'm not going if I were going. The point being here, did you see who's going to be speaking before Brandon Beane?
Josh Allen.
Josh Allen is going to not only be in the building, but he is going to be available draft week. And you know what? I love it. I love the fact that Josh Allen is around in the most important week, might be kind of giving some input here when, okay, the Bills aren't going to take 10 defenders in this draft. I would assume they're going to take a wide receiver at some point, maybe another tight end. Have Josh Allen give his input. That would be one of the questions I would put forth to Josh Allen. How much input do you have here?
Yeah, it's funny how I remember us having this conversation about Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers, and Rodgers kind of being upset that, they drafted his replacement and they didn't really consult him. And I'm like, at the time, I remember thinking, they don't have to consult you. They're the Green Bay Packers. They can do whatever they want. Yeah, you're the quarterback. Be the quarterback. The GM does what the GM does. The, president does what the president does. Why do they have to consult you? And since then, hearing how the Bills, we know that the Bills have talked to Josh Allen about, hey, you want Keon Coleman? Is that the guy you want? You want Dalton Kincaid? Like, what do you think? Can you work with these guys? Are you go with these guys? I'm okay with it. And I don't know if it's because of the difference of personality from what we know about from Josh Allen versus what we know about from Aaron Rodgers. But I don't have a problem with the Bills including Josh Allen. I mean, let's face it. He is the franchise. No Josh Allen, no success. Involve him. Go ahead.
But how many other teams are putting their quarterback available to the media 2 days before the NFL draft? Who else is doing this?
Well, I know that, I'll use my team as an example. I know that the Bears, have gotten their offseason work underway and that some of the players have spoken to local media.
That's different, right? So, but this is, hey, there's nothing going on. Here's Josh.
Mm-hmm. Well, it'll grab some attention, and I'm sure that we'll get some quotable moments from his availability, from Brandon Beane's availability, and it all leads up to Thursday's round 1, the NFL draft, a week from tomorrow. We'll be live from Three Heads Brewing, our pre-draft draft party. We invite you to come out and hang out with us as we talk about everything that could go down a week from Thursday night. Remember, it's always a great time for a kind IPA. Three Heads reminds you to be kind. Stop out. We'll be there 3 to 6. And as we like to say,
we can share a cold one and maybe a win or two.
Look forward to seeing you in the neighborhood of the arts on Atlantic Avenue with Three Heads.
That is going to be a good time, certainly. And I feel like it's kind of the calm before the storm here for the NFL, that we're going to have a lot of things coming away. We talked earlier to PJ Glasser, and one thing we can't do here in New York State, maybe we get to this point, if they realize, oh, wait a second, betting revenues are down year over year. Well, you know what would be really fun to bet on? The NFL draft. And odds makers kind of know where to put things. And PJ put this out there. He's not saying it'll happen, but it was like, oh, that's interesting. So we know Cam Ward won. At least we're pretty sure, right? And talking with Spencer German and looking at the odds, it should not be a surprise if Cleveland actually takes Travis Hunter at number 2. What about the Giants at 3? Well, they're going to take a quarterback. Do they take Abdul Carter? There's another scenario. What if the Giants wash away the mistake of letting Saquon Barkley go by taking the best running back in the draft at number 3, Ashton Genty?
Oh, man. Could you imagine? I can't see them doing that.
I could see it with a caveat that they would just trade down ever so slightly, where you could still see them getting it at 5 or 6 or whatever.
You just got to get in front of the Raiders. Because you got to imagine that the Raiders are looking at him falling to them. And that's a need. The Raiders have 0 going on in the run game. So, yeah, that would be a welcome addition for sure. Interesting. You know, we probably should get one of our Giants guys on with us here before the draft as well, seeing that the draft now we believe starts at 3 with the Giants, and they've had their share of trauma here this offseason with Daboll and Shane kind of dead men walking.
We think it starts at 3. I think we've kind of that's kind of consensus. Travis Hunter, and you're seeing all this talk about, hey, will the GMs be willing to let him play both ways? And the Giants, for their part, they said yes. Well, yeah, you're making him play corner, and then give him a couple plays on offense. That ergo will be playing both ways. He's not playing every down. This isn't Section 5 ball here.
If you missed Spencer German, who gave us his thoughts on the Browns offseason, what they might be doing with pick number 2 in next week's NFL draft. If you missed PJ Glasser and his winners for tonight's play-in tournament, the NBA, you can get both of those conversations wherever you get your podcasts. Search out the Sports Bar, the free-to-download Odyssey app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your shows. You can always go back and watch our live stream as well on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester. We stream live every afternoon from 3 until 6. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment while you're there.
So sometimes we kind of chuckle. I'm not calling it a Bills note, but whenever a player might be available, wow, where might he go? Buffalo. And then it's discussed on the Talking Head show. And it's almost like these Talking Head producers, the Talking Head themselves, and look, I have respect for these guys, but I'm just kind of using that. You know the Talking Head shows, right? Maybe they should just kind of call a show like ours and say, hey, is this realistic or not? Yeah, I don't know if you saw this or not. So the story from yesterday, Greer, the GM of the Dolphins, kind of makes the announcement forward. Yeah, we're open for business for Jalen Ramsey. All right, well, Jalen Ramsey is a player. Oh, by the way, you'd have to pick up the $21 million that he's owed this year. Okay, good luck finding a draft pick. And, even if you release him, I don't think I would entertain that in Buffalo, not at that price. Ryan Clark, ESPN, believes that Jalen Ramsey would be a great fit for the Buffalo Bills.
No thanks.
Ryan, whoever's producing out there, why? Based on the Bills need a second quarter? Is that it?
Well, they definitely have a need, but it would be really awkward for Josh Allen to have his son on the team. I just don't see a way that that's going to happen.
You remember that? Jalen Ramsey at the peak of his powers, like when Josh was just coming in. Oh, called him trash. He's trash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he torched him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he can have his son on the – that would be rare. It would be rare for an NFL player to have his son on the team. Has that ever happened where you've had an NFL player and his son on the same team?
You've had the Griffeys, okay, and
right,
then
Major League Baseball, sure.
Yep, and then you just had LeBron and his son.
Mm-hmm. But
So,
in the NFL,
yeah, in the NFL, yeah, this could be a first.
all right. Well, maybe they break ground, and this will be the first time that Josh Allen, the first time that a father-son combination can happen in the NFL. Josh Allen can have his son on the Bills roster. Go get the deal done. Let's make history. I think it's ridiculous. When you see $21 million attached to his name, don't you feel good about the Bills signing Benford at $19 million? It's amazing. You've got arguably right now a better player at this stage of his career than what Ramsey could offer you, and you're getting him at a value. We talk about the life cycle of a corner all the time. I mean, it's when you bring in Bradbury, it's like, what are you going to get? You're going to get a guy who probably has really good technique but can't run a lick anymore, and he's coming off an Achilles. Okay. He's still an athlete, but he's not the athlete he was.
Same thing with Tre'Davious White.
Right.
You're just hoping that maybe this corner can be there to help whoever. My anticipation is one of those second-round picks will be your starting corner for the Buffalo Bills. There's going to be guys there in the second round that the Bills can get. You don't need to trade up for a corner in this draft, in my opinion.
Want to take a break here. Come back. We have a round of shots next in the sports bar.
That we do. We've got more NBA to talk about, NBA ratings to kind of discuss, the Sabres playing out the string, and, the portal. I want to take a guess how many players are in the Division I football portal.
Ooh, I can't wait. What's the over-under?
I'm not going to put the over-under. You want to make the guess now? I've got the answer here.
No, let's hold off on that, and you can share the answer when we come back from the break. How many players, college football players,
are in the Division I portal?
Yeah, we'll get into that. We got time for your calls as well. Last call before we close up shop at 6. If you want to have the final word in the sports bar, here's our number, 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326.
Play-by-plays. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
It's hockey night tonight in the Flower City as the Rochester Americans hosting Cleveland. Just 3 games left in the season. Head coach Mike Leone talking about the opponent.
They're a really desperate team, man. They're 1 point out of the 3rd seed, and I think that's really important to get the bye. So they're going to come and they're going to push, and they got a couple of really good players that could hurt you. So we just have to make sure that we're ready to go and ready to play because they got guys that could really expose you.
Catch the game tonight right here. Don Stevens, Andrew Mossbrooks will have your call beginning at 7. Snow on the ground this morning meant no baseball in the afternoon for the Rochester Red Wings. They'll make that doubleheader up tomorrow, taking on Worcester. On the Major League scoreboard, the Mets fall in 10. This to the Twins by a 4-3 score. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM, AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
Bone-crunching hits, backboard-shattering dunks, bat flips, and hat tricks. 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Happy hour continues on The Fan. You're in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia. Last call still coming up before 6 at 866-4326 if you want to pull up a stool and join us first. Let's get to a round of shots.
It's not too often you get a 7 seed as a heavy favorite over a 2 seed, but that's what we got in the NBA's Western Conference. Golden State minus 250 against Houston. The Warriors get back into the postseason thanks mainly to 2 guys, Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, combining for 75 points in their win over Memphis. Memphis now awaits the winner of tonight's Dallas-Sacramento matchup. In the East, Trae Young got ejected late for firing a ball at an official. It is going to be Orlando moving on to face Boston. Atlanta now waiting the winner of tonight's Miami-Chicago game.
Kind of like the Orlando-Boston matchup. I think that's going to be a fun series. I mean, Boston probably wiped the floor with them, but I think Orlando, because of their physicality, that they could actually, present a challenge-ish.
Houston is one of those teams like, wait a second, in that conference, how are they so good? And we're just kind of like writing them off. Like Golden State beating Memphis is a disaster. Are they not? Like their star player doing that stuff. Like honestly.
He's still a really good player, Gene. Yeah, he's a knucklehead, but he's a really good player. Jaren Jackson, really good defensive player. So Memphis falling the way they fell isn't really a surprise. I would be surprised if Memphis doesn't get in as the 8. That would be surprising to me.
Yeah. It wasn't a good year for the NBA overall. TV ratings across the board down 2%. But let's put that into some context here. At one point, do you know this? They were down as much as 20%.
Yep.
Now, reasons for that: Christmas Day being taken away by the NFL. That was right at the top. That's the national ratings. What about the local ratings? Local ratings tell a different story. John Oren reporting that local broadcasts for the NBA down an average of 13%. Miami and Atlanta, the 2 biggest markets to take a hit. Miami down 40%. The reason isn't necessarily people are down on the NBA, Danger. Main reason here is there's just less subscribers locally.
Yeah, and the regional networks are all kind of a mess, right?
Correct.
I mean, you don't really know what the regional network is for a lot of these teams anymore. I think that the product, I'm looking forward to the postseason. I hope that the postseason entertains me more than the bit that I got to watch of the regular season of the NBA because, man, if it's just guys chucking threes all day, I just think the product is a little bit flawed. I know that load management doesn't become as much of a topic when you get into the postseason, but here we are going into the postseason, and you're hoping Dame Lillard can find his way onto a court. You want your stars out on the court. Lillard's got the blood clot issue and hasn't been playing for a while now. It's like, that hurts. I think that hurts. Yeah. You want your stars out there. You want your stars playing.
I would say this, too. The way they stretch the first round out. Like, they really think that you're going to watch every NBA game and you can't put 2 games concurrently. Like the NHL can do that. You can stagger this a little bit better. But the fact that, theoretically this could go over 3 weekends, no, I'm not into that. Honestly, it's the first round.
Yeah.
NBA Finals, sure. The first round, no.
Well, the first round, though, I think in both the Stanley Cup playoff and the NBA playoffs, I do think that the first round is still the most entertaining. I know that there's not as much at stake, but there's just so much going on. It's just rapid fire. You're constantly watching what's going on over your shoulder. it's drinking water from a fire hose. I love the first round.
The our buddy, I got to give credit here to one of our regulars on the sports bar, Brian from East Hilton or North Grilton or whatever you want to say, pointing this out. This is a savage headline. The news article on the Spectrum website. Sabres look to wrap up season on losing streak against Flyers.
Wow.
All right. Yeah, keep it going. Lindy Ruff remains stuck at 899 career wins as an NHL coach. The Sabres dropping their fourth in a row. This was at home, but wasn't really a home crowd, was it? The Leafs win 4-0. Four-time Buffalo has been shut out this season at home. And with the win, Toronto locking up the division. They'll now get Ottawa in the first round of the playoffs. The season will mercifully end tomorrow night for the Sabres on Fan Appreciation Night when they host Philadelphia.
I want to see if I can pull up while we're talking the announced attendance for last night's game.
That was also an issue, and it was either late arriving, but I can tell you this, because is the board an issue? The secondary price to get in last night, $32. And you would say, oh, well, yeah, the Sabres are out of it. They suck. Who cares? No, that's Toronto.
Well, I thought
$32 get in for a Leaf game?
But I heard that a lot of Canadians were boycotting coming across the border. A lot of Leaf fans weren't going to cross the border because of all the tariff nonsense and all the political nonsense. The announced attendance last night, and this according to ESPN, was over 17,000 at KeyBank. Right. So that it wasn't a sellout, but it wasn't terrible.
Yeah, you don't know how many didn't no-show or whatever, but the secondary price was kind of a gimme. And also, okay, Toronto was playing for the second seed, but if you're a Leaf fan, maybe you're saving your money for the postseason. Hard to get a read on that. Sticking with hockey, we still have one spot to be handed out in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Columbus won. They stay alive, so it's going to come down to tomorrow night. Montreal is up 2 points on the Blue Jackets. If the Canadians get 1 point against Carolina, well, then we'll have Washington facing the Habs. If Montreal loses and Columbus beats the Islanders, then it's going to be the Blue Jackets facing Washington in the first round.
It's as simple as that, right? If the Blue Jackets win and get some help, then they're in. So Montreal, who's playing who?
Montreal is tomorrow night. Because they're playing Carolina.
Okay, so Montreal gets – okay, yes, yeah, I see. 1 point against Carolina, and Columbus has the Islanders. Okay. So, yeah, if Carolina wants to do Columbus a solid, beat Montreal and let Columbus beat the Islanders, which they could do.
It gets weird because Carolina's got – they want to rest guys, right? Are they really?
I want Columbus in the postseason just for the Goodrow story. Think that's compelling. No disrespect to the Habs, but I'll pull for Columbus.
The idea, though, that it's been since the Canadiens in '93. Edmonton came close. Toronto, Ottawa, maybe Montreal. You've got Winnipeg. Mm-hmm. Are they? Well, Hellebuck is going to take that team as far as he can go, and then what about Edmonton getting back? I mean, to me, I know you're kind of like, oh, they're not really. There are stories here that are going to pull you in.
Yeah. I'll. You know what it is, Gino? I'm out of sorts. I don't have a garage set up yet. The weather's been dicey at best.
It felt like Christmas Eve today when you woke up, right?
I didn't like it.
No,
didn't like it one bit.
Finally, the payoff on the tees here. How many players right now, opening days of the portal?
College football?
College football. Just the Division I. Division I.
I'm saying 1,200.
Is that your final answer?
Am I wildly inaccurate?
The answer, 6,426 players are in the portal.
Wow.
64 freaking 100 players?
I was off.
The NCAA is an unregulated mess, and these kids are getting bad advice. Sure, I would say maybe for 25%, you're going to make more money, a better opportunity, but how many guys are going to be like, oh, is that all there is? Nobody wants me?
Where's Nico going to end up? He's already said he's in the portal, and he said do not call, so he knows where he's going.
Cowherd's reporting that he went to UCLA.
Oh, okay.
It's already a done deal.
Okay.
which that's the guy from Tennessee that said, oh, you give me more money. And then, the thing was like, we never said that. That's absolutely not true. And UCLA came in, and so.
So, yeah, okay, so he'll be in California, and he'll have an opportunity to make more than 2.4, I think is what he was going to make in Tennessee.
Right.
He'll probably make more than 2.4 at UCLA.
I'm guessing no. I'm guessing that's let's save face, and you're playing in the Big Ten, and you've got Deshaun Foster as the head coach?
Well, you also have Los Angeles, and you can sell cars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You put his face in a car dealership. I don't know. I think that there might be some opportunity there for him. It's charismatic, dude.
Well, look, that's not the only sport that's having issues. Today's college hoops transfer little spotlight is on Baylor. Now, you would think Baylor would have loads of NIL money. They made the NCAA tournament, too. It's now official. For the guys that had eligibility left on Baylor, every single one of them went into the portal. Baylor will have an entirely new roster from top to bottom next year. They don't have a single player on their team right now.
Love their coach. Love their program. They just couldn't wait to come back next year, run it back, try to get to the tournament again. Yeah, no. Good luck. That's unbelievable. You're right. This is just a unregulated mess. But that's the one thing that I think they won't. If there ever comes a point where they unionize or there's some sort of collective bargaining between the universities and the athletes, they're not going to give up their right to transfer. That's the thing that they want to be able to do no matter what. You should be able to transfer. But if you're a contracted employee, if they put you under contract now, you have to honor the contract, right?
So apparently, like one of these players transferred to BYU. But the player at Baylor that transferred, like literally he had a contract that was going to pay him $1 million. Well, he decided to leave. Like, what's the contract? If it's really a contract if you can do something like that.
It's only $1 million. I could get more if I go play at BYU. BYU is going to be good.
BYU is going to be a Final Four team next year. I'll be like, okay, this is where the world's at. Who's got the money?
That's right.
BYU.
That's amazing. So 6,400. I was way off.
400.
Do we know what it was
kids.
last year? Because I feel like last year it was something like 1,200.
Yeah,
it exploded. Absolutely exploding. That's crazy. All right, we got to get the last call, close up shop. We'll get you ready for the Amerks tonight. They're hosting the Cleveland Monsters, 7 o'clock puck drop. We'll have Don Stevens by with the call. Andrew Mossbrooks by his side. That's on your proud home of Rochester Americans hockey. We'll also set you up for tomorrow afternoon here in the Sports Bar. Fun afternoon planned for you on your Thursday. That's all coming up along with your calls. Last call at 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326.
Taglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
It's the last call at 866-4326. Feel free to join us every afternoon in the Sports Bar, 3 until 6. Our live stream up on the YouTube channel. We're sounding our best in the free-to-download Odyssey app. If you missed any part of the show, you can go into the free Odyssey app and listen to any part that you may have missed. Just use chapters. Go back and catch up on Spencer German from 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland, or PJ Glasser, the host of Send It In. You can hear those conversations. Spencer joined us in the 4 o'clock hour, PJ in the 3 o'clock hour. Or if you're a podcaster, you like your podcast, wherever you get your pod, just search out the Sports Bar. You'll find all of our guest appearances there.
Also, there's an additional Division II and Division III combined. Just do the math. 3,600 in the portal, where you don't get paid, Danger. Those are just, I'm not getting an opportunity.
Right.
Yeah. I have yet to meet the Division III school that hands out NIL. So.
Right. Well, where are you at now? You have Division I schools not even worried about NIL. They're just saying, no, we're the feeder program for Ohio State. If you come to Bowling Green, if you're Eddie George and you're the coach, and you come to Bowling Green, don't worry. You play good here, and we'll send you to Ohio State.
There's some debate whether that's true or not. I want to believe that's true, but even if it's not true, that's where we're going to be.
I mean, it's always kind of been that way when you think about like players that play junior college and then get their chance to play Division II, Division III.
Well, who's a kid from Florida? Funny how, time flies right by, right? Kid that was just, led the Gators to a championship, went to Iona.
Mm-hmm.
Does Iona get a cut for that? I don't think so.
Right.
It might behoove like a mid-major to set up a deal, then they get paid in the back end here. I bet you that's where we're heading.
Play-in tournament tonight for the NBA. And we also have Amherst hockey tonight on the Fan Rochester. Cleveland, the opponent. So Cleveland has something to play for. The Amherst really don't. They're locked into the 2.
Right. And Cleveland, Columbus. No. I don't want Columbus making the postseason. I want Montreal making the postseason, so therefore they cannot send anybody to Laval looking ahead to the second round, Danger.
All right, I hear what you're saying there.
Yeah.
This is Mike Leone yesterday on the Sports Bar talking about these final 3 games and how they're going to approach them from a roster standpoint.
We got some big pieces out. There's a little bit of managing loads a little bit. So, we have an idea of what we're going to do in goal, but other than that, there's going to be a lot of different guys getting opportunities on the power play, and we still got to play good hockey and play the game the right way. We can't just mail these last 3 games in. We're going to play the 18 skaters that would give us a chance to win, and we're going to try to win the game. I think we got to be smart right now about the lineup and what we're going to do. So there's still some things we got to sort out and make a decision.
I said it off air during the break. You mentioned Lindy Ruff is stuck at 899 career wins.
Mm-hmm.
One more game in the regular season. Get the win for Lindy against Philadelphia. Nice round number. Walk off. 900 wins.
They're not firing Lindy Ruff. Agreed?
I fear like they're not going to fire anybody. That's my fear. My fear is that they just run it back. Or my bigger fear is that they'll find a scapegoat, and that scapegoat could very well be Seth Appert.
Right.
Which
you
I
can't,
hate.
You can't run it all back, but we've got to change up the coaching staff, and I think Seth knows this. But what would be bad for Seth? I think going back to the college game, it's tough to win at RPI, right? Like he was there for many, many years, but like all the jobs now getting filled up, in the collegiate ranks. So hopefully everything is okay.
I would hate that. That would be my worst case scenario. But I think right behind that would be running it back and bringing everybody back and not changing anything. I don't know. Well, if you're a Sabres fan right now, do you even care? Are you so apathetic on this team right now? It's like, doesn't matter. Doesn't any of it matter?
You know the answer to that question. Well, here's a little thing, too. I asked Paul Hamilton if he would have time to come on the show on Friday. He can't. It's locker clean-out day. But I didn't realize this. Were the Bills, everybody kind of locker clean-out day done? No. Lindy Ruff is going to meet with every player. And who knows? The meeting could last 5 minutes, could last an hour. So literally locker clean-out day for the Sabres begins at 8 in the morning, and it could go right till right now. So, that's how, they're going to stagger out all the the exit interviews, if you will.
Yeah. Here's what you need to work on this summer. Everything. Oh, wow. Well, the Stanley Cup playoffs are on the horizon at least, and fun to watch some meaningful and competitive hockey because we haven't seen a lot of it out of the Buffalo Sabres for some time now. It's really, really hard to be as bad as they've been in the NHL for as long as they've been. In a league where more than half the teams make the postseason, we're not talking about this team as a postseason team now for the 14th year in a row. All right. With that, let's talk about a team that actually does win, the Rochester Americans. They've got Cleveland tonight at 7 o'clock. You'll hear the game here on the Fan Rochester. The Hall of Famer Don Stevens with the call. Andrew Mossbrooks there as well. And tomorrow on the show,
Dan Fates, 13-win Buffalo Plus. Ryan Talbot talking about these top 30 visits as well. A lot of Bills talk tomorrow.
All right, yeah. Fates at 325, Talbot at 425. If you miss PJ Glasser from Send It In on the BetMGM Network or Spencer German from 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland, find them wherever you get your podcasts. Search out the Sports Bar. JR Sport Brief next on The Fan.